Sure, I can rob 5 billion pounds worth of diamonds for you, but I'm gonna need a big-ass vacuum, some cockroaches, and a lovely slice of chocolate cake. We watched 11 Harrowhouse, we did, starring Mr. Charles Gordin. What? Today on Nothing Movies. Jameson, you mentioned in text that we have a retraction that we have to do. And I always say, put the retractions at the start of the episode. That's what I no better way to start an episode than by talking about how we messed up.
We fucked up.
But this isn't probably should have mentioned that because we didn't even, I don't even know what this is.
No,
I'm going to completely blind here.
This is something that we both should have known, but it slipped both our minds in the moment.
All right, so it is a probably should have mentioned.
And I clued into it while I was doing the editing. In our previous episode, Recoil, we had mentioned that it had been a while since we had spoken about one of the movie's co-stars, Danny Trejo. We had not seen him since episode 3, which was Desert Heat. However...
Episode 4.
Sure. However, this was the fourth time, not the third time, the fourth time that we have covered a movie that features Danny Trejo. Can you recall what the third one was?
We've watched so many goddamn movies on this podcast.
Oh, I'm so delighted.
Was it a voice role?
It was a voice role.
Oh, it was a voice role.
Yes, it was.
What bullshit animated thing was he in? I can't even remember.
Here's your second. It wasn't animated.
No, you're just going to have to tell me because I don't remember what it was.
He was in Pups Alone as the mean bulldog.
You're so right. He was in Pups. How can I forget Pups Alone?
I forgot it too, but what I'm kicking myself at not remembering that for him is because that particular role almost broke my goddamn mind, where it's him and the dog talking through the talking robot voice caller, and he's trying to translate the Danny Trejo dog to Dolph Lundgren, who's trying to shoot the dog with the talking collar.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pointing guns directly at dogs' heads in that movie.
And this is a children's movie.
Oh, that is wild. I can't, because we really have watched far too many movies.
We've watched a lot of trash.
Well, apologies to the estate of Daniel Trejo. All right. Well, welcome back, however you wish to self-identify, to Nothing Movies, where we ask the question, what the fuck is this? It's the podcast. What, you like that? You like that little chuckle?
Little chortle?
That I did that?
That's all right.
It's called acting. It adds color.
Uh-huh.
The podcast where we go through an actor's filmography and choose the most anonymous and culturally untalked about movies that they've made and decide whether or not they've got a certain something or if they're just a whole lot of nothing. I'm Kaz Lasgard.
And I'm Jameson Rafter.
You know, I didn't buy that.
Okay.
I didn't, but you're forcing me.
You're more of the actor than I am.
Well, I'd like to hear it again, but, surprise me.
No, that's why they call me One Take Rafter.
That is true. They do call you that, yes. Today we are talking about the filmography and the legacy of Mr. Charles Gordin. I'm very excited to talk about this actor. The first actor we have discussed on this podcast, Jameson, whose career is fundamentally done.
In that he's dead?
It is, yes. It is. There will be no surprise Gordin drops in the future.
Okay.
Unless they... I don't know, unless they make like an AI Gordin and they bring him out for
Don't put it past him.
The Beethoven Legacy Disney Plus limited series. God, what a terrible time for movies.
What a horrible future
what
you're
a
painting.
What a cesspool. It's the present. It's right
That's
now.
True. That's true.
It exists. What a terrible time for cinema.
But we're not talking about a terrible time for cinema.
We're talking about a great time for cinema, 1974, where you could suck up a bunch of diamonds with a vacuum and blow up a bunch of cars, and you know what? That was a movie. That was all we needed back then, and we liked it that way. And that was all they needed for
different, simpler time, I suppose.
That was all they needed for 1974's 11 Harrowhouse.
Oh, it needed a lot more than that, I'll tell you that right now.
And to help us talk about this movie, a very special guest who's being very quiet. You can talk at any time.
Oh,
but
I wasn't aware of that.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Well,
I'm just trying to be.
Did you want to say anything before we introduce you? Was there any? Is there any burning?
No. It can all wait.
It can all wait.
Yeah. I think your audience is sitting on the edge of their seats, wondering who I am at this point.
Right.
So.
And I also want to say, I'm very proud of us lately because we have been really good at following through because we ran into each other on the street and we made plans to get a drink and we followed through on that.
We did.
And
We
then
did.
and then when we were having that drink, we said we got to get you on the podcast. And here we are following through with that.
It's true.
Wow.
It's very true.
Our guest today is an actor and a theatrical director. He has directed me in some of my favorite theater plays. I forgot the word for theater for a second. It's Tariq Leslie.
Hey, everybody.
This all sounded better in my head as I was walking down this. I had a whole intro here. Thank you so much for coming, my friend.
It's great to be here. Yeah, I've really enjoyed listening to your podcast. So
Thank you.
It's great to now be on your podcast.
Wow.
Thank you so much. That really
That's a first.
did.
Well, now that's not true.
That's
'cause
not true.
Your other guests have said similar things.
Yes, but year 5, it's finally starting to sink in. People are actually listening to this.
Oh, yeah.
And have listened to more than one episode. And it's
And have come back as frequent guests.
yeah. It's kind of blowing my mind.
Well, may I be one of those frequent guests?
Please,
Absolutely.
Indeed. So I was telling you about the concept of the show, and I said, who's an actor that you want to talk about? And you came back with Charles Gordin. Now, I'm excited to talk about this guy, but what was it? Sort of a two-pronged question.
Yeah.
What was it that made you want to choose Charles Gordin? And second prong, what would you consider is like the definitive Grodin? What's like your top Grodin movie?
Well, okay, to answer the first question, he's been fresh in my mind lately because after years of wanting to pick up his autobiography, I actually found a copy on Amazon because it's been out of print for yonks now.
Wow.
At least I think it's kind of, I don't think he did it as volumes, but he did do more than one biography for various parts of his life.
Oh,
but his first entry was called "It Would Be So Nice If You Weren't Here," and it was just a very witty thing about his upbringing, what led him to acting, how he went to the actor's studio, and just the trajectory of his career. And I got to say, just as a side note to that, I actually think this book, though out of print, it should be required reading for anyone in first year of an acting program because it's. Yeah, he puts that sort of Charles Grodin wit and barbs and stuff in there, but it fundamentally is written by a guy that loved what he did for a living, in spite of the hiccups and the 2 steps forward, 3 steps backward kind of thing. But it also really shows the variable nature of the industry and how you can think you're on an ascendant sort of arc, and then suddenly you're not ascending anymore. And it's really interesting. And this film, in fact, which he mentioned in the book, and I became aware of through the book, was kind of a bit of an example of that because he was hot after Heartbreak Kid. Was literally just waiting for something to come through the door that appealed to him. There were scripts coming at him, and this was the one that he went, I want to do this one. Yeah, so that's why I chose this film. And it was on iTunes, so it was an easy find as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You've read the autobiography, so I'm for once I'm actually going to be referring to you to kind of like fill in
Sure.
sort of like the color of
I'll let somebody else talk.
of a career, which I'm sure the audience is just thrilled at the prospect of hearing someone else talk for a while now. Yeah, but like you mentioned that this was something that he did hot off the heels of the Heartbreak Kid.
That's right.
And he got a lot of leeway in being able to choose his co-stars.
That's
he
right.
kind of like co-produced the movie. He rewrote the movie.
He did. He wrote the scripts. I guess we'll want to get into that at some point. maybe later.
We have an entire second half of the podcast
yeah.
where we can talk about just this movie.
Yeah.
But there's some interesting behind-the-scenes stuff going on in this film.
And as I noticed, because I did research in addition to to his autobiography for this, and there are some really contradictory stories, as there often is on any production.
I imagine,
Right.
Yeah.
Especially for something that happened decades ago.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I get the sense, both from his own admission and then from what other people have said, and that's available out there to read. I think he was often viewed as a difficult actor, but he actually wasn't. The more you dive deeper into the situations where he was difficult, right? Like,
He's just someone that always had an irascible quality to him, and that's why he always got cast in those type of roles.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get the feeling that was more of like it was obviously something that he was drawing on as an actor, but you also get that was mostly, that's a character that he can draw from, and I'm sure
he can lean into it a little bit.
Yes.
And all the mild research I've done on Charles Grodin, I can't find anyone who said a bad word about him. He seems like he was a lovely individual who did a variety of other things. He also directed and acted in a lot of Broadway, and he had like an entire career doing television, and he shot music videos for Simon and Garfunkel in the 60s.
He shot their special, right?
Wow.
That at the time those specials were often like kind of pretty puffy, right?
But
like
he shot that before
stuff like
he
that.
was famous. That was one of the early things that he did.
Yeah, and it was dark. And the network was embarrassed by it because it didn't have that kind of thing with humorous sketches. It was like
it was a little more raw, right?
Yeah, he really worked with Simon and Garfunkel on it to kind of go, this is who I think you guys are? Is this who you are? And so, he used some of their songs with a montage of like all alluding to all the assassinations that had happened, between JFK, RFK, and MLK, that sort of thing. And CBS left them the hell alone. And
then when they saw the final product, they were like, "What is this?"
They were
morose?
like, "What is this? We're not airing this."
And we were looking for like the Smothers Brothers Variety Hour or whatever, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And in the end, I guess like the gist of it is that they came to an agreement where they aired it once, and then it was mothballed. Although I haven't watched it, but I did discover that it's on either Vimeo or Daily Motion, the special, and I will sit down and watch that at some point just out of curiosity. Yeah.
So you mentioned The Heartbreak Kid. Would you consider that like your top Grodin?
I suspect I would if I saw it, but because I'm a little bit of a purist, like I am looking for...
Right, we talked about
this.
And
I've found I guess you'd call it an illegal copy of it that I've downloaded that was put together by someone in South America.
Yeah. Heartbreak Kid, weirdly a hard movie to find on any... It's not streaming, it's not really on physical media.
Nope.
It was a popular movie that was nominated for Oscars, so it's very weird that you can't find that anymore.
Yeah, and apparently, from what I read too, even the DVD that came out in the early 2000s was not a very good transfer.
Huh. So weird.
Yeah, it's very weird. So for what's left, or what I've seen of his, Midnight Run is the thing that really, like, I was aware of him from the adaptation of the Neil Simon play Seems Like Old Times with Chevy Chase and Goldie Hawn. I was aware of him from Heaven Can Wait, and I just loved even as like I think I saw Heaven Can Wait when I was like 10, and Beatty at that time for a 10-year-old was kind of fine, whatever,
he's my favorite actor.
Yeah, well,
10 years old, walking around Warren Beatty. But Dick Tracy? You kidding me?
But it was just Grodin's delivery that hooked me in both of those films. Like he drew me in more than Chevy Chase, he was more something that spoke to me more than Warren Beatty's performance at the time. I love that movie. Now a great deal, but it was really Midnight Run. Like and this is sort of almost commenting on how summer releases have changed, because it was my summer of grade 11 that Midnight Run came out.
Wow.
And that was like a tentpole blockbuster film at that time. That would have been 1987, right?
Yeah.
And it's like the closest equivalent I can think, and it did not do well, but I think it was a film in a similar vein more recently, was The Nice Guys with Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling.
Fantastic movie.
Kind of a similar nature, but I remember saying to friends that I saw that film with the summer that came out. It's like, this is crazy. Like, no one's in this theater, and this is what would have been a tentpole summer movie.
It was a really weird, interesting sort of, not a gamble, but, it's Martin Brest immediately after Beverly Hills Cop, which was the
Midnight Run, yes.
The most successful movie of that year.
Yeah.
It's Robert De Niro kind of trying comedy for the first time.
Yes.
And then it's Grodin, who's not really a box office draw.
No.
He's like a really respected character actor who's in like these other things, but like he wasn't like your natural go-to.
He wasn't a draw.
No, I remember they wanted someone else to play
Robin Williams.
They wanted Robin Williams.
The studio did. The director absolutely wanted Grodin once he saw them working together, and he was expected to do multiple auditions. And there was a point at which, and I'm sorry I can't remember the details in full, but basically he just put his foot down and he just said, tell me what it is you want to see that you're not seeing, and I will give that to you. And he said, but I just don't see the point of me coming in and doing this again and again for you. And it was by saying that, and he said it pleasantly, like all these things that have given him that gave him a bad reputation. He was always pleasant about it. He was just unflinching, right?
Yeah, that sounds very reasonable of him to do that too. Yeah.
Well, there's a similar thing that you guys probably know this, but he was Mike Nichols' first choice for Benjamin Braddock in The Graduate.
Oh, that would have been interesting.
And that makes a ton of sense, too.
What's the age similarity between him and Hoffman? Because Hoffman famously was like 31 when he did that movie.
He was only like a handful of years younger than Anne
He might be younger than Hoffman.
Oh, no, he was. He definitely was. And the sticking point was that, and again, he wasn't an asshole about it. I can say asshole on this podcast, right?
Yeah. I said fuck earlier. Don't worry about it.
The name of the podcast used to be called The Fuck Is This. So yeah, no, you can say worse.
We're a potty mouth podcast
but
here.
The sticking point was purely, and again, he was simply matter of fact about it. He was like, they offered him $600 a week, and he just said, I'm making that with TV work that I pick up right now. Yeah. I can't take a feature film for that kind of money.
Good problems, eh?
Yeah. And, you know, he got them to $800, and then I think the studio at that point was angry with him, and they sort of pressured Mike Nichols, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff in there. But at no point was he difficult. He was just like, this isn't fair, you know? And
that's called difficult when you're crunching the numbers.
Yeah, it was a similar thing in this is fairly well known. I think that a scene in Midnight Run was shot. They flew to New Zealand specifically to shoot some of the stuff in the river. If you remember, there's a bit in that film where
he falls off,
and it was because they were shooting it somewhere else in America, and it was very clear. Like they were saying, like, look, if there's anything about this, you just give us this signal when you're in the river. And, you know, whatever. And he got in and he was just like, he gave them the signal, right? And they shot a bit more and De Niro then spent, and somehow it morphed into this was Grodin that had caused the trouble. But it was actually De Niro that like spent a good deal of time in the river on their second day of shooting it. And he just went, there's no way I can keep doing this, and you should not do this to Charles.
Right.
And then they basically a handful of weeks later, they wrapped up everything else, and then they were on a plane to New Zealand to just shoot that sequence in a New Zealand river. And that was it. Yeah.
Midnight Run's really fresh in my mind because I just watched it the other night because I was just watching some random Grodins to prepare for this. I mean, Grodin is Midnight Run. What surprised me this time around is that like Grodin in that movie is one of like the finest like comedy performances of all time. I want to talk about my relationship with Charles Gordin, but before I do that, Jameson, you are coming from a completely different.
Some might say blind.
Yeah.
So you have a Charles Grodin deficit in your life?
I have a blind spot when it comes to Charles Grodin. I will say, in the 90s, I saw the first Beethoven movie.
As we all did.
Now,
if you were a child in the 90s, you watched that movie.
Now, up until last year, when you and I, to sort of do a refresher course, when we did that Rosemary's Baby sequel, we watched the first Rosemary's Baby, where he was in that. And up until then, I had only ever seen one Charles Grodin movie. Now I can say I've seen 3.
There you go.
All right.
Just the important ones.
I'll say, like, here's how you should really treat me as far as what's Jameson's exposure to Charles Grodin. In the 90s, I got him and Steve Martin confused all the fucking time. Because in the 90s, they were both playing sarcastic, snarky dads.
Slightly put upon
in these very broad comedies. Yeah. Even with the hair. You know, I kept getting those two guys confused a lot. And now it's like, okay, well, now I obviously know who Steve Martin is, but I didn't actually go back and, correct my own record on, Charles Grodin.
You had the thing from The Simpsons where you had written on your hand, Steve, white, Charles, brunette. Yeah. I have to imagine Charles Grodin probably lost out a few roles to Steve Martin. I have to imagine, because they really are playing roughly the same archetypes, especially in the 90s when they were doing, like that family dad type thing. I can imagine Steve Martin, Beethoven, as much as I can imagine Charles Grodin and Father of the Bride.
Absolutely,
like they're pretty interchangeable.
Yeah. In fact, I would, in some respects, I think I'd prefer to see Father of the Bride with Charles Grodin. And I love Steve Martin.
Yeah.
But I think I'd actually could see that being a little bit more of an interesting dynamic.
Almost interchangeable, without disrespect issued to either of those performers. But it's like, if they couldn't get Steve Martin, Charles Grodin's right there. But from what I've just learned, and from when you were counting the book, when you said that he experienced sort of like a very hot start, and then, after one disastrous movie, that really tanked his star bankability. And it's like, that is such a typical story of fame and celebrity in show business. So, I went from like, I don't really know a thing about this guy, to like, well, now I have all the empathy in the world for this guy.
Yeah. And he was a very thoughtful actor too in his
Sounds
approach
like it,
to roles. Like you mentioned Rosemary's Baby. There's a very funny anecdote in the book about Rosemary's Baby where like he and Polanski, in a very minor way considering the size of Grodin's role in that, butted heads, right? There's that sequence in that movie where she's not gone to him. Grodin plays for
like the doctor that she wants to go to.
The good doctor, the non-Satan doctor.
And when she finally goes back to him, when she's convinced of everything and has that huge monologue to him of everything, like they're Satanists.
Yeah.
I have, alluding to having Satan's baby and all that. He was taking, and I think in the finished film, it's there. He takes a bit of a beat after she's finished that story.
I remember that,
before saying, okay, I'll get you the help you need or whatever. And Polanski took him aside and went, no, you don't do this. You don't do this. And he goes, I want you to say it immediately. And he goes, can I just give you my rationale here?
Mm-hmm.
If he just immediately says it, that's not going to be believable to anyone that he's taking in what she's saying. But if he considers it, bides his time. And Polanski tore into him, just saying, do you know how much I'm paid? Do you know how much I'm paid? I know these things.
Which is
I know these
so weird
things.
because Polanski, famously chill dude. That's very odd. That's like the only time I've heard anything.
Fuck, I'm going to say good on Grodin for that, because that is probably hands down my favorite line of the movie, where she says, like, there's no way you believe. And he's like, well, I don't know if I believe in all this Satan cultist kind of stuff, but there are a lot of crazy people out there. And I'm like, yes! Thank you. It doesn't even have to have any kind of supernatural element to this.
Because it comes at a point in the movie where it's like, you're just so relieved that someone's actually listening to this.
Yeah. And if you were going to that movie totally fresh, which I was, I mean, I knew the overall thing, but I didn't know how it played out.
Hey, you, me both.
When I saw it for the first time, it was but the funny sort of thing about how he ultimately won that argument is the next day after that fight, he goes over to Polanski when he comes to set, and he says, I've been thinking about what you had to say to me yesterday. And it's been going back and forth in my mind. And after some time of reflection, and then he takes this really long pause and he goes, I think you're right. And then Polanski goes, thank you. And he goes, so you believed what I just told you. He goes, because that's why I put the pause there.
Wow. Just schooling the director. And he was right. He was ultimately right, because here we are talking about it. And, you brought it up, and I remembered it before you even finished your sentence. So clearly it's a small moment in that movie that resonated. For me, there were two movies growing up that Charles Gordin was in that I had on VHS that I watched pretty religiously. Growing up, we had about 10 to 15 VHS tapes that were, just like the movies that I watched. It was the movies that we had. Beethoven was one of them, of course, the aforementioned Beethoven, because I think if you were a kid in the 90s, there was like some law that said at least 50% of all 90s kids had to own Beethoven on VHS. That was just a movie that people had. But the real movie that made Charles Grodin an actor to watch and take note of, for me, was The Great Muppet Caper.
Do you remember he was in it? I don't remember anything about it.
I had both of those first two Muppet movies on the old clamshell VHS. In fact, I still have them. They're still at home. I still have the copies that I had as a kid. And specifically, the VHSs for these first two Muppet movies, when you put them on, before the movie started, they would play the trailer for the other movie. So the Muppet movie had the trailer for Great Muppet Caper and vice versa. And what I have seared into my brain, I remember Charles Gordon's entire performance from The Great Muppet Caper. He, of course, plays the dastardly Nicky Holiday, the brother of Diana Rigg's Lady Holiday.
That's right, Diana Rigg.
Who is also a jewel thief, come to think of it. It kind of ties into the movie we're talking about today here. But there's a scene in the trailer for The Great Muppet Caper where they're introducing Diana Rigg and Charles Gordon. They are the two lead humans in the movie.
In the Muppets movie.
In the Muppet movie.
We all know the type.
Non-Muppet
There's a subplot in that movie where, of course, Charles Grodin has a romance with Miss Piggy, naturally, and chemistry burns off the celluloid. But there's a specific moment in that movie where Diana Rigg and Charles Grodin are sitting at a table at a fancy dining club, and Lady Holiday has a big diamond necklace around her neck, and we, the audience, knows that her brother is the jewel thief, but no one else in the movie knows that he's the jewel thief yet. And they're sitting there, and Diana Rigg says, "I feel as if thieves are breathing down my neck." And then Charles Grodin leans in as close to Diana Rigg's neck as possible and goes, "Thieves aren't breathing down your neck." And that line reading will be with me for the rest of my life. I have never forgotten that line because I watched that trailer over and over again. Oh. And so for years what I associated with Charles Grodin is thieves aren't breathing down your neck, which is that's basically it. And then as I got older, I started seeing him in other movies. I feel like for children of the 90s, only 90s kids will understand. Yeah, he was that guy from broad comedies. He was from the Beethoven movies. He was in Clifford. He has a small role in Dave by Ivan Reitman. He's like Kevin Kline's accountant and stuff.
And the lonely guy was
the lonely guy, which would confuse. It would make your brain explode, Jameson, because that movie has Steve Martin and Charles Grodin.
Oh,
in it.
Fuck!
So
I'm definitely gonna need the recipe card for that one.
But
I'm seeing double 4 Grodins anyway.
Usually playing the straight guy, right? Like usually playing that.
He had a long run. I've gone through his filmography, which I feel like at this point in time in this conversation, I'm not going to run down the full Grodin filmography because we have talked about
sort of like the big 3 or 5.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
I'll mention like a couple that we haven't talked about here, but there was definitely a period where he was like firmly the other guy.
Yeah.
Like he played a lot of Baxters, if that's a term either of you are familiar with. Basically, like the other guy, the guy that the girl is with at the beginning of the movie but isn't with at the end of the movie.
Right.
That's called the Baxter?
It's called there's a Michael Showalter movie called The Baxter. He gave that a name. It basically like Bill Pullman in Sleepless in Seattle and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, he played a lot of those. He played a lot of like second and third build characters and stuff. I don't know. I'm just going to run down some aspects of his career really fast. Now, you've read the book, so you might know the answer to this. Do you know Charles Grodin's first cinematic role? Did he mention it in the book?
He must have, but I may have forgotten. As far as I thought it was.
So his first uncredited role.
That doesn't count.
No, I'm okay with it. Yeah, I'll probably.
That's not fair.
Is in the 1954 Disney live-action 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Fuck,
Yes.
I love that movie.
With Kirk Douglas and
James Mason,
his
James
co-star
Mason.
in this movie.
Wow.
I love it when that happens.
Yeah.
And as you pointed out earlier, he had some say over who got cast in 11 Harrowhouse. I have to imagine that's not a coincidence. Where it's all my first movie, this guy was the star of the movie. Now I'm a star of the movie. He's gonna be like third build.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just like when that happened. I just thought that was neat. Yeah, and then 1968, he has his small role in Rosemary's Baby. 1970, we talked about Mike Nichols. He wasn't in The Graduate, but he was in his follow-up to that, Catch-22.
Right.
And then the movie he makes right after that is The Heartbreak Kid. So he did a Nichols and a May movie back to back. He worked with both of them.
I never even made the connection of that. Yeah.
And I have to imagine, working with Mike Nichols probably helped him get the job on working with Elaine May in the Heartbreak Kid. The Heartbreak Kid was his first leading role as well too.
Yeah.
So yeah, big deal for him. There's a handful of movies I would recommend you check out for Charles Grodin. Jameson, Heartbreak Kid is definitely one of them. There's a shitty transfer on YouTube that's how I watched it, but it doesn't take away from the movie.
Okay.
Heartbreak Kid, if you don't know, is about a guy who gets married, then goes on his honeymoon, and on his honeymoon he falls head over heels in love with another woman, and then tries everything he can to get out of his marriage and then marry her.
That old chestnut.
It was Charles Grodin's in a lot of movies where like the plot of the movie is adultery. Like I'm just going through like the plots of his movies. That seems to be like a subplot in like the majority of them.
Yeah.
How Can I Cheat on My Woman in Red is a movie that's just about how can I cheat on my wife.
That's right.
Yeah, that was a big thing in like the 70s.
That's a different era. That was our protagonist.
And then Heartbreak Kid, 1974, 11 Harrowhouse. 1976, he's in the King Kong remake.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Playing the Carl Denham role, although I believe they changed the character names in the 74 remake. remake, and he's not playing a film director. I think he's playing like an evil oil executive.
That's right, and they think that Kong can be because that was actually one of the
Kong's full of oil. I don't know. I don't remember.
Pandemic rewatches for me was
wow.
Because at that point, I think now it's behind like one of the add-ons for Amazon, but at the beginning of the pandemic, it was available, and I thought, oh, I haven't seen this since it was like in the theater, since I saw it in the theater as a kid, and it holds up relatively well.
Yeah,
really.
I'd say it's maybe the lesser of the King Kong movies, but
I prefer it to Peter Jackson.
You know what? Fair enough. That's a
Yeah.
That's a divisive movie.
Well, that one inspired a theme park ride, so.
There we go.
So you can't all be mad.
Of course.
And I'll always remember it. This is my film nerd coming out, but I'll always remember that film because it's got a kick-ass John Barry score.
And of course we got who is it? Rick Baker as King Kong, and it's just like this was 1976, Jameson. So King Kong
Man
is
in a suit, yeah.
It's literally a dude in a suit,
Gotcha,
and
yeah.
it looks great. It totally
actually
holds
does.
up.
Oh,
It doesn't look bad at all. There's the worst bit is the animatronic giant Kong at the end.
the one that they reused for the theme park ride.
Yeah. It's just, but it was like, why? You were doing so well. Why this now?
1978, he's in Heaven Can Wait. 1979, he's in a movie I've always meant to see, Albert Brooks's Real Life.
Oh, I did see that years ago. He's as good as you'd expect in that. I mean that is a good thing. Yeah.
Real Life is one of my favorite movie trailers. If you've ever so Real Life was Albert Brooks's first movie as a director, Jameson, and it's a very prescient movie because
You can say that to the audience too. You don't have to just single me out.
Okay, all right, sorry.
You're
For the purposes of this podcast, the audience's name is Jameson. There might be a Jameson listening. You never know.
We all
Odds are.
have to be the surrogate sometimes.
Yeah, so it's a movie that kind of predicts everyone's obsession with reality television because Albert Brooks plays himself. It's a mockumentary, and he falls around like a suburban family and just films real life. And Charles Gordin plays the patriarch of the family.
Gotcha.
The trailer is no scenes from the movie. It's just Albert Brooks talking directly to the camera and just him getting excited about the fact that they filmed the trailer in 3D. And it's him just doing like hokey like paddle ball stuff. And then like a message flashes at the bottom of the screen. 3D glasses may not be available in all theaters. It's hilarious. It's so great. It's like a short little 3-minute movie, and I love that's a great trailer if you've never seen it. Yeah, and then 1980, as you mentioned, he's in the Neil Simon movie Seems Like Old Times with Chevy Chase and Goldie Hawn. He's Lily Tomlin's husband in The Incredible Shrinking Woman. The Great Muppet Caper, 1981. Lonely Guy, 1984. Woman in Red, also 1984. 1986, he's in a terrible National Lampoon's Vacation ripoff called Last Resort, which is on Tubi. And I was like, I want to watch some random Charles Gordin movies just to like prepare myself for this and everything like that. I got 20 minutes into that and said, absolutely not. No thing. And I usually watch movies to the end, but that was not. I was not having any of that fucking movie. Thank you very much.
Well, we'll save it for a future episode, so you'll have to watch the whole thing.
God. 1987, Ishtar, his other Elaine May film.
Yeah. The
legendarily panned movie Ishtar, which, frankly, not as bad as everyone says. Definitely the worst Elaine May directed movie, but it's not the worst fucking movie ever made, as many people for many years claimed that it was. 1988, Midnight Run. 1990, he's in the J.J. Abrams penned Taking Care of Business, where Jim Belushi escapes from prison after winning World Series tickets and assumes his identity because
J.J. Abrams did that?
J.J. Abrams wrote a bunch of random screenplays before he became like a TV producer.
Holy shit.
Yeah. 1992, of course, Beethoven. 1993, a really big year for him. He's in Dave. He has a pretty funny cameo in a alarmingly unfunny movie, the Mike Myers film, So I Married an Axe Murderer.
I remember liking that movie back in the day.
I do not care for that movie one bit. But you know what? If you like it, that's
And was that your fresh take on it, or was that something that evolved over time?
No, I watched that like for the first time 2 years ago, and I could not stand it. I can't take Mike Myers. I can take like doses of Mike Myers, but I can't take him.
I've gone off him in general, but that film in my memory is still a good film. I have no desire to see any of the Austin Powers movies ever again.
But Gordin has a very funny bit in that because Anthony LaPaglia is playing like a cop, and he tries to commandeer Charles Grodin's vehicle, and Charles Gordin won't let him, and he ends up driving him. Again, a little bit of Grodin in your movie, it's nice. It's like a little nice. It was a nice respite because Mike Myers is not on the screen when he's in that. He's also in Beethoven's Second. He's in a charming little movie called Heart and Souls. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
It is the
What
most...
do you think? No, I haven't heard of it.
It's the most high-concept plot for a comedy that has ever existed. You can never get a movie like this made. It's about 4 people, Charles Grodin, Alfred Woodard, Kyra Sedgwick, and Tom Sizemore, who die in a bus crash. But then the same time they die, a woman gives birth, and their souls get attached to the kid, who later grows up to be Robert Downey Jr., who has to help them do like their final business.
Like reconcile.
Yeah,
something.
reconcile
Okay,
and
it's
stuff.
unfinished
Yeah.
business.
It's the most high concept 90s comedy that's ever existed. Robert Downey Jr. is like the top billed actor. He doesn't show up until like 35 minutes into the movie.
Wow.
It's a movie where the main character is 4 ghosts. It's a very strange movie, but it's charming. It's
Yeah?
it's a light little watch.
Interesting.
1994, he's in Clifford.
Which was released way after 94,
Yes,
wasn't it?
that's a very divisive movie. Some people think it's hilarious.
seen
Other
it, but I
people
want
find it
to someday.
obnoxious. That's a movie where Martin Short plays a 10-year-old. He annoys. It's basically Beethoven, but Beethoven is replaced with Martin Short as a 10-year-old.
Okay.
And Charles Grodin is his uncle, who's at the end of his rope. Clifford. 1994, he's actually married to Mary Steenburgen in 2 movies that year. He's in Clifford, and he is in
The sequel.
My Summer Story, which is a stealth sequel to A Christmas Story
right.
that
Oh.
recasts the actors. So he's playing the old man.
Who's
Taking
that?
over for
Darren McGavin.
Darren McGavin.
Yeah.
And then he's not in a movie for 12 years. And
Is that when he's on MSNBC?
did that happen?
He had a talk show
Oh.
on MSNBC for
Okay.
years. Yeah.
That's news to me.
Yeah.
So I guess that must have been what he was doing during that time.
Yeah, because he left acting to do it.
Like, was it like a sit-down interview show, or was
It was an interview show, op-ed stuff. Very thoughtful, considerate guy. So
Okay.
like he just gave his insight. You can find lots of clips of it on YouTube.
Sure, yeah.
I didn't have cable. That would have been cable when it was on during those years. So I never saw it live or anything. But I've seen the clips on YouTube.
Oh,
And
cool.
He was always good about the things he had to say, I thought. Yeah.
Oh, probably well-researched, too.
I mean, I think his socio-political things are pretty much aligned with mine. So it's.
But that always helps when, like,
it's easier.
when you
It's
like
it's
a
not
talking
saying
head
anything
show,
reprehensible that's going to make me go, oh god.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was like the tone? Was it like kind of like a, for lack of like a better example, was it kind of like a Daily Show type thing? Where
It was more like I'm really dating myself here, but Tom Snyder, who used
I'm
to have
familiar
the
with that
Late
name,
Late
yeah.
Show after Letterman, right?
Okay.
It was like that. It was just a little more unfiltered, and I don't mean, that in terms of swearing or subject matter, but it just was less. It was a less manicured show. It was just like free talk.
Okay, a little more rough and tumble, like, yeah.
Didn't
Yeah,
even know that.
just
Didn't even know that was
and
part of
less
his
about
career.
less about having people on to like puff them for a movie or a,
Yeah.
or a book or something.
Yeah, you're actually having sit-down discussions
Yeah.
and stuff, like
Yeah.
an early Bill Maher, I guess, by the sound of it.
Well, Snyder's the
Less cringy.
Yeah.
Snyder's the better. Tom Snyder is the better guy, even though it's a reference that I gather you probably didn't get, but he well, no, I didn't mean that in a bad way. It's just I'm in my 50s, so
I've
he was
heard the
bound to
name.
be-
I couldn't
Yeah.
tell you who he was, but I've
He,
definitely
well,
recognized
you know what?
that as
You know
a-
who the closest is to that now, or was at times, which is really most of the times, Craig Ferguson. Like
Oh,
the
yeah.
way that he
Oh,
was
okay.
more. It was less about the pomp and circumstance,
And more just about let's have a very laid back, very
but
loose.
good, meaningful conversation. That's right. Yeah.
I never watched that show. Too late.
Well, you're missing out, and all the clips
Yeah.
are on YouTube.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
he does eventually come back. And I remember when he started popping up in movies again, I was excited, like, oh, is Charles Grodin
Yeah.
back? Are we going to get like this reclamation Charles Grodin performance? And then it just never really came. Like, he's in like just a handful of movies. 2006, he's in The X, where he, it's like
Jason Bateman, right?
Jason Bateman's in like a wheelchair. He plays Amanda Pete's dad. He's married to Mia Farrow in that movie, so that's like a funny little decades later Rosemary's Baby reunion in a comedy that no one remembers.
Right.
He's in a pretty good movie. He's in the Noah Baumbach movie While We're Young. He plays Naomi Watts' father in that.
Okay.
That's a movie about like middle-aged people hanging out with young people and getting some FOMO and whatever. It's an okay Baumbach. It's not one of my favorites. And then he's in 2 movies where he plays agents for Al Pacino and Robert De Niro. He's in The Humbling, which is based on a Philip Roth novel, and then he's in The Comedian with Robert De Niro, which is a terribly unfunny movie, ironically. But yeah, that's a weird little Midnight Run reunion. And then, unfortunately, his final movie is a movie that barely got released for a lot of unfortunate reasons. It's a film called An Imperfect Murder, which got released like 4 years after it was shot, and that's largely because that, unfortunately, is a film written and directed by James Toback.
Oh.
Who, if you do not know, is kind of like a lesser Harvey Weinstein. He's like a less well-known predator.
Less hits under his belt.
Exactly,
Yeah,
but
okay.
Equally as scumbaggy. And unfortunately, that's Charles Grodin's last movie. But there we go. This intro has gone on more than long enough. So why don't we take a break, listen to a charity spot, and when we come back, we will talk about what 11 Harrowhouse is all about.
Sure, yeah.
We'll visit that address.
Sure. Yeah. June is Pride Month, and while normally a time to enjoy parades and events supporting of the LGBTQ+ communities, this year seems darkened by the creeping rollback of legislative wins for queer folk in parts of the United States and a rejuvenation of prejudice against the LGBTQ+ groups, particularly the transgendered. It's a disgraceful situation where hard-fought battles for civil justices and equality that can take generations before any sort of progress can be seen can be rolled back in an instant by bigots in positions of power. And yet the fight must continue, because the alternative is plainly unacceptable in a moral world. So for today's charity spot, I want to highlight Lambda Legal, who have been in the courtrooms fighting to protect the rights of the LGBTQ+ community and everyone living with HIV for over 50 years. The organization's team of pro bono lawyers use their knowledge of law to fight for what's right, and have already won many high-profile, precedent-setting civil rights cases spanning from marriage equality to fair employment and gender identity. In addition to litigation, they also use their legal power to help push forward public policy and education campaigns. Because Lambda Legal never charges their clients for their legal work, and they don't take government funding, they rely on donations to keep the lights on and to keep change coming. If you would like to learn more about Lambda Legal and make a donation to their organization, please visit their website at lambdalegal.org. That website again is lambdalegal.org.
And we're back.
We're back.
11 Harrowhouse was directed by Aram Avakian. I don't know if that's how you pronounce that guy's name.
Yeah, I couldn't help you.
He's an Armenian-American film editor and director. His films include 1959's Jazz on a Summer's Day, which is credited as the first feature documentary about a music festival.
Oh,
So,
really?
Pretty important, pretty significant.
Good for him.
1962, he co-directs a movie that I assumed was a blatant ripoff of Lassie. It's a film about a border collie called Lad, a dog.
How did a lawsuit not happen?
Which I'm just like, what do we do? We need to get like a Lassie ripoff in here. Make it a boy. Call him Lad, a dog. But then when I looked it up on Wikipedia, Lad, a dog, the source material that it's based on actually predates Lassie by like 2 decades.
Oh wow.
So color me surprised, but yeah, no, it's a film about a dog and a family and whatever.
But it's still the exact same.
Yeah. And I also I need to mention, because I was looking at the Wikipedia article for Lad, a dog, that it stars Archie Bunker himself, Carol O'Connor, as a character named Hamilcar Kugler. I had a podcast that needed to be said. That's information that needs to be out there.
Okay.
It sounds like it's a name that's sort of supposed to be like Bob Blah Blah or the rural juror.
The next time I'm playing D&D with some people, my character name's going to be Hamilcar Kugler.
Is it like Q is like Q the dot glur, or is it Kugler?
Nope, Q is the middle initial.
Oh no.
Yeah, Quixebo is what's the name of that flying serpent? Quetzalcoatl is his middle name.
Yeah.
1970, he directs the highly controversial X-rated film End of the Road.
Oh yeah, which was comparable in many people's mind to Easy Rider in terms of being like a counterculture film that studio execs didn't get at all, but like apparently it did reasonably well.
This is going to do well with like the hippie and the biker crowd. Yeah,
I think it made a decent profit on a really low
I think it was
budget.
like a bit of a cult
film.
Yeah.
Definitely, it certainly seems like his most critically lauded film as a director.
Keach, yeah.
Stacy Keach and James Earl Jones are in this.
Oh, wow.
It's controversial for a number of reasons. It's one of the earliest depictions of abortion on screen. And Wikipedia also tells me that there is a scene where a man rapes a chicken.
Oh.
So there we go. So Jameson's like, oh, that movie!
Well, it's like,
There's your X rating.
so
Yeah.
So did the chicken have the abortion, or what's going on here?
No comment.
Okay.
I am backing away from that
I
one.
think the chicken scene was added in because they wanted to cash in on the whole thing of having an X rating to draw in more people.
I thought you were going to say cash in on like the trend of chicken fucking back
No,
in like the
it-
second.
no, it was like,
Hey,
hey,
you don't recognize this at the time.
They were
for
looking
sure.
at Midnight Cowboy and going, "Well, they won an Academy Award. What can we do to get an X rating? We'll put in the scene with a chicken."
And then in 1973, he directs a film called Cops and Robbers, which is what if cops were robbers?
Based on one of my favorite pulpy novelists, Donald Westlake, wrote the novel.
Oh,
for that.
cool.
Oh, wow.
Oh, right on.
One of my favorite crime writers.
And he was originally supposed to edit a little movie called The Godfather. But according to cinema legend, Hollywood legend, he got into constant fights with Francis Ford Coppola and tried bad-mouthing Coppola to the producers so he could get Coppola fired and he could direct The Godfather.
Oh, what a, what a jerk.
Spoiler, it didn't work out for him. He ended up getting fired from The Godfather. From last year, the Paramount Plus limited series The Offer, he is portrayed in that series by Jeffrey Arend, who, of course, is the actor who eats all of the drugs at the beginning of Super Troopers. His cinematic legacy is solidified right there. What higher honor could you achieve than
the Snosberries guy?
the Snosberries guy?
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't want to jump ahead on anything, but I will just give this teaser out on my opinion of him vis-a-vis 11 Harrowhouse.
Oh, sure.
Thank Christ he didn't direct The Godfather.
Yeah. He stopped
I
directing.
don't think any of us would be talking about that
No.
film now.
No, not at
The
all.
Godfather would be remembered in the same breath as 11th Harrowhouse.
And then after 11 Harrowhouse, he just didn't direct anything.
No shit.
Ever again.
That's not such a terrible thing.
No, probably not. No.
Because, yeah.
All right, so we're alluding to a lot of things, but let's get into the subject at hand here. The title of the episode, 11 Harrowhouse, the third in our unofficial trilogy, Jameson, of Americans in Britain doing crime.
Oh, I guess so.
We don't
kind of stumbled upon that
we
genre.
don't plan this shit at all, but we've definitely covered 3 of those now with Samuel L. Jackson's The 51st State and Sam Rockwell's Blue Iguana,
yeah.
which is also about them stealing a big diamond. So,
Eventually.
Eventually it gets around to it, yes.
Yeah.
So, so we don't need to cover another one. We've done it. We've done the trilogy.
If
We've
you
done the
do,
trilogy.
I highly recommend Macintosh Man with Paul Newman, directed by John Huston.
Why are there so many of this? But why is this a subgenre
I think
of Americans going to
Well, I
Britain?
think much like Canada, and I only actually figured it out by reading about 11 Harrowhouse, I think that Britain at the time had a very similar tax incentive to what Canada had, and so there were a lot of people that were making films for the tax break, right? And I think that's what did it.
And I get the appeal of like the culture clash between the Americans and the Britons, just going after various treasures.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was like some American exploitation thing on Britain's side. Like they just, we can't get enough of these Yanks trying to pilfer our pennies or whatever the fuck, pilfer our pounds.
Well, I mean, like the heist movie was a very big genre in the 70s. I feel like that was like an entire genre.
It's one of my favorite genres.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we get so few of them now. So like when we get one, like they're like I feel like Soderbergh did a lot of work to to bring like the heist movie back into it. I have a feeling like Steven Soderbergh probably at one point in time probably watched 11 Harrowhouse. This feels like
for sure.
feels like his kind of film.
Yeah.
And made notes on how to improve it.
How to do better than that. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Anyway, 11 Harrowhouse.
Yeah.
What's it about, Jameson?
Well, I just want to say right off the bat here, and we're definitely going to get into this portion of it. It is a movie adapted from a book, and it has Charles Gordin doing some heavy rewrites, doing some heavy screenplay adaptations on his own part for this movie.
Yeah, we should probably get this sorted out here. Yeah, this movie screened for an audience, and the audience universally did not like what they were seeing.
didn't quite get it. So much in the same way that they did with the recuts of Blade Runner, they had the star do like a constant narration of it.
Except this time, the star actually wrote his own dialogue with, I believe, uncredited help from Elaine May
And Herb Gardner, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. So they're bringing out all the ringers.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, but it definitely feels like a film that was obviously reshot and re-edited. A big editor on this movie, Anne V. Coates, who edited Lawrence of Arabia and other things. So, like, someone who knew what she was doing. It doesn't help because the movie feels absolutely cut to ribbons. There's very weird editing. Like, Candice Bergen will be driving a car at one point, and then we'll immediately cut to John Gielgud, like, coming out of an elevator. I'm like, ugh, whiplash.
Very curious.
Very jarring, where it's like a rockin' 70s soundtrack, and then cut to dead silence.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm glad I wasn't the only one that noticed that. Yeah.
But and what I can't figure out is that by all accounts, so like the original screening without the voiceover and any sort of cutting, it was like right down the line at 50-50, right? And then, but that audiences on the whole, when they went back to test it with the voiceover, overwhelmingly loved it. And I'm like, I want to see the other version of this.
Absolutely.
For God's sake.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if
it's relentless.
I don't know if they overwhelmingly loved it. I have a feeling between the two versions of the movies, they were like, okay, that one.
I can follow this one a little bit better. I don't know.
But I mean, like, midway through the movie, I started, like, doing the thought exercise of, like, what if I was watching this without the voiceover?
I was desperatly trying to do that. I was like, block it out. I was trying to use every meditation
I
thing
think
I picked up.
we're on different sides of this coin here. Look, the voiceover doesn't always work, and it definitely adds some unintentional humor and some intentional humor to scenes that are happening. But I'm watching certain scenes and I'm picturing them without the voiceover, and I just would have been deathly bored. Because without the voiceover, there just would have been long periods of just silence. There's no musical score or anything. It's just people walking in stone silence.
Well, that's when you hand it over to an editor who decides, well, we can trim this, 20-second moment of just watching Charles Grodin in his resting bitch face, and you can trim that down to like maybe 5 seconds or so, and now you have a beat where you're, I'm taking this in as the character's taking it. I don't need to have everything explained out to me. And
totally agree.
It's already a short movie, though, so you have to wonder, like, how much more could they cut out?
Well, I think but from everything that I've read, like the stuff that's actually out there that the editor had to say about it was what she received. Yeah, like, it wasn't what she did with it. It was
what she had to work with.
That I have to use this whole thing, every part of the buffalo.
And I gotta say, like, for me, I really lay 90% or more of the fault at the director of this.
Sure,
it just because there is a good story, a compelling story in this film, and it's like there's just weird shit. Like the biggest thing I noticed, and maybe you guys would disagree with me, is that there is seldom a framing shot in the film in which your lead actor is positioned in the frame the way you would a lead. It's like he's the secondary character in his own film, kind of thing.
It's an interesting dynamic because I was even surprised at his introduction in the movie because it's a very thrown away sort of introduction, and we have like a couple of scenes of him narrating before he's even introduced. So it's very strange. The thing is like he's playing a character who is sort of dismissed by a lot of like people in power, and the movie kind of continues on with that vibe of all like, well, if these characters don't find him that interesting, the film almost doesn't find him that interesting either.
Yeah, and it's ultimately like you don't like the first sort of sense we really get of what's going on is with his character. Or the clearer thing is that scene with him and Candice Bergen in the hotel room after he's got the diamonds, right? And it's like, okay, now we finally get it. But I was like you, I thought like when you were talking about how the film jumped around, like the perfect opportunity to have introduced him on camera is when Gielgud is arriving at work, right? Yep. He sees him there. Like, I don't know if I could ever write a screenplay, but I actually think I'd be a half-decent script doctor. Like, but I think, like, that's where you do your little bit of tweaking. Is like, Gielgud comes in, he sees Grodin there, they have a word or two about him being late, so we really get that driven into our head, right? Weren't you supposed to be here yesterday? Then it fuels the conversation with James Mason that Gielgud has. And but it's just this weird thing. It's like, why, before you've introduced the main character, do you go to Candice Bergen in the...
Oh, yeah, I really don't know
all.
why she got introduced before Grodin did, particularly because all she's doing is driving a car very fast, which we eventually learn is her main character trait. Yet she drives cars very fast.
She's a daredevil.
Her whole, and I won't get into it so we can, go through it progressively, but I have to say, on measure, that's one of the things that impressed me the most about the film was her as a character.
Oh,
we're gonna have a Bergen corner for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, so like the movie opens with a plane landing, a plane that I already assume has Charles Grodin as a passenger on it.
Would be wrong.
He has like this whole narration about like, oh yeah, I make a trip to London almost every year, and
my name is Chesser. I was from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I lived in New York, and I came to London about 6 times every year to buy diamonds from the world's largest diamond exchange, which is located here on Harrowhouse Street. A place which actually, for reasons you'll see, I hated. This is a story about something very unusual that happened to me on one of those trips. My last trip to 11 Harrowhouse.
But I'm a nice guy. I've never really stepped out of line. I never thought of doing anything bad.
I was reasonably honest. I cheated as much as I could on my income tax, but aside from that, was a relatively decent guy as guys go. I've never done anything really seriously wrong, but then again, I was never given the opportunity. It's not that I never thought of it. Like most people, I'd thought about doing a lot of things and always found a way not to.
And I'm just like, and where the hell are you, sir?
Yeah.
At one point he even says, I entertained the thought of robbing a diamond repository, but I wouldn't do it like these guys. And I'm like, what guys? Oh, the guy who's in a stretcher on the airplane and is getting loaded up by a doctor. Oh, they're jewel thieves, huh? But he's referencing characters who are just throwaway robbers who's only there to establish that these diamond people, the system, which is the name of the organization that works out of 11 Harrowhouse. Yeah, you don't want to fuck with them. You don't want to rob with them because they're going to detonate your diamonds in a fantastic explosion.
And this is very confusing, and it's never explained. And it's very...
No, you almost figured that scene out more when you're about midway through the film.
Yeah.
Like, then you go, oh, that's what that scene was about. Because then you have enough information to kind of go, oh, these are hard-nosed people when they need to be.
But we're talking about, alternate ways to open the movie. How about we learn a little bit more about how these jewel thieves stole the diamonds? Because they're doing this big con where one of them is posing as a doctor and the other one has some sort of illness, and they've managed to, fool an entire airline. Is it like a private airline? Is anyone else on this airplane, or is it just them? I don't know, but they land and an ambulance is there, and they get into the ambulance, and when they're in the back of the ambulance, that's when they're all like, "Ha-ha, we fooled them!" And he opens his doctor bag, and there's a false thing with diamonds underneath it. But then when they lift the diamonds up, there was a bomb underneath the diamonds, and the van exploded. That's pretty cool. I'm always happy. When
it was a cool looking explosion.
In the first 2 minutes of a movie, if you can blow up a car, I'm pretty happy.
But was that bomb always in the medical bag?
I think it must have been, but it's never explained how it got there. We find out. Yeah, the very next scene we go to the system. We go to 11 Harrowhouse. We meet John Gielgud, who is the
Mr. Beecham.
Mr. Beecham, who's the head of...
And who's great.
He's fantastic.
Yeah, he's icy and he's stuffy. He's great, yeah.
Oh, man, the British snoot in this movie is off the charts.
Yeah.
Off the charts snoot.
Mm-hmm.
And then he has this tough little enforcer guy who's played by an actor named Peter Vaughn, who I have only ever known as a really old guy. He's in Game of Thrones. I believe he plays one of the maesters.
Okay.
And I was just so shocked to see him looking so
as
young.
a young man.
I'm so I assumed you came out of the womb as an old man.
Right.
But, it was
is
wild.
that the guy that's minding the entranceway, or is that the guy that
that's
steals the diamonds from
No, that's the guy in the opening thing was all we took care of those diamond thieves for you, John Gielgud.
Him,
yeah. You think he's going to be in the movie more, and he's actually not. He's actually,
no. And in the movie, he's. I actually got the sense, and I think this is again a lack of clarity in the writing. I think he's a cop that the system pays off. That's my sense.
Again,
is that he's a cop.
It would have benefited with maybe a little more explanation as to.
I thought he was just.
Who these people
I thought
are.
he was just the receptionist. He's the guy who signs people in and out every day. He takes care of James Gordon when he's waiting in the waiting room, or not takes care of him.
I think
he tells him to put out his cigarette.
Kaz is talking about that burly guy, I think, that,
that dude.
shows up and he's watching.
I'm talking about someone that I recognize because I recognized him from Game of Thrones, but I'm now just realizing now that I'm bringing him up. He's not really an important character in the movie, so you'd be forgiven for not knowing who the fuck I'm talking about.
Totally.
Also, there's a lot of, like, middle-aged white British men in this movie who kind of all look the same, so you'd be forgiven for confusing one character from another. You mentioned, Jameson, this scene where Charles Gordon has to put his cigarette out. I really liked this interaction. This is some hardcore passive-aggressive bullshit where Grodin is sitting in the lobby waiting to go up to see John Gielgud. He lights a cigarette, and the guy at the desk looks at it, and from the second the guy looks up and looks at Grodin, you know exactly how it's going to play out.
Sure, yeah.
The guy silently gets up, picks up an ashtray. You think for a second he's going to be all like, here's an ashtray for your cigarette, sir. He just stands in front of Grodin and holds it.
Waiting for him to put out the cigarette
and
in there.
at first Grodin's all like, oh, thank you, I'll tap my ash here. And then he's like, takes a second, he's all like, oh, and then he figures it out. He taps it again, and then he puts it out. And like, there's not a line of dialogue between these guys, and I'm just like,
but there is some internal monologue where he's like,
oh yeah, of course,
I hate being here. Like, they disrespect me. I hated Charles Grodin's character. He's such a meek, weak-willed kind of guy, and yet in his internal dialogue that we're following, he's just like the most passive-aggressive little snot. And I couldn't.
I did have the thought, Jameson, when I was watching this, knowing, because you had told me that the only Charles Grodin movies you had seen were Beethoven and Rosemary's Baby. I did have the thought that, like, if this was anyone's first introduction to Charles Grodin, you would think he was a terrible actor, because he's actually.
I don't think he's a terrible actor.
He's actually not good in this.
I would agree, but he also thinks that too.
Yeah. But it's well thought. I wouldn't fully say that it was his fault.
No.
The thing is that he's playing someone who's trying to be like
a snarky kind of guy, but he keeps it buttoned down.
Well, he's trying to be impressive. He's trying to like be, like a tough guy in front of like these Brits who clearly don't respect him, and they respected his father, or maybe they did.
Yeah, now he's taking over the family business of being like a diamond broker. Or
but without the voiceover, he has this very wooden, sort of like stilted delivery. Except in the scenes with Candice Bergen, and then he melts a little. Then he melts a little bit. But like for the majority of the movie, I'm all like, this is our main character. I don't like following.
And again,
this
I gotta
guy.
say, to go to that to just re-reference that cigarette bit of comedy, which I really like. Shot in a way that did not bring, like, it didn't help it. You know, like it had, if it had been shot differently, if he'd framed that interaction differently, the director could have gotten a lot more out of that, I think. It's just this weird thing. The comedy in this film made me think of something that the Python said about, I don't know if you remember, the Pythons made a movie before Holy Grail called It Now for something.
Oh yeah,
I had that on VHS. That was one of my one of 15 VHS tapes.
That's just like them recreating all their best sketches from Flying Circus.
And they hated it. And it was that film that made them all collectively go, one of us needs to direct our films from now on, because there is a comedic rhythm that this guy just didn't get. And it made me think of that with this film. Made me think of that in the comedic moments. It was like, this guy doesn't know how to shoot a comedy. And then in the action stuff, I kept thinking, God, I wish Peter Yates had directed this film. You know, because it was just like,
or someone British, which was interesting because like
Yates
this isn't although this is what I'm saying. Like this director Aaron Maverki, and he's an American guy, so it is interesting. But I mean, like like everyone kind of like stumbles their first couple of times directing a movie. I mean, this guy up till this point had only directed 4 other movies. Oh fuck, shit, really? Oh damn. Okay, never mind. You would have thought he would have learned something by now.
Maybe the intention was that because 11 Harrowhouse is so stuffy that it's going to be shot in a very uninteresting, flat way. I don't know.
He succeeded.
Just to heighten the uncomfortableness of it, or whatever. It was. Yeah, that's what it was. It was intentional.
So Grodin is playing H.R. Chesser, who is a diamond buyer. Now I know nothing about the diamond trade. Diamonds on the whole aren't something I have ever given like a ton of thought. I actually
or could afford.
Well, as I've gotten older, it has become something where I just of the opinion that it's like it's a product that's basically produced almost entirely by slavery. Exploitive. It's it's like a bullshit expensive status symbol. It's clear rock. It's a clear rock that we put all of this importance on, and it's really crazy.
Yeah, and there's $1 billion industry surrounding it that make up the fucking rules themselves and control the market.
I have also learned since having this opinion that you shouldn't bring up this opinion to everyone. There was a couple of Christmases ago, my staff Christmas party was at a coworker's house, and near the end of the evening, she was showing me her diamonds she was very proud of, and I'd had a few by that point, so I started off on like the whole slavery thing, and we kind of needed to be pulled apart. Certain women get a little crazy about their diamonds, is what I've learned. So just keep your opinions to yourself around certain people. Certain people really love their diamonds a lot, and it's like a weird status symbol thing. So.
Well, especially if their last name is De Beer.
Yeah.
Then I'll bring it up.
That reference is all the way here over my head.
They're a huge diamond.
Oh, okay, all right. He goes to 11 Harrowhouse to buy diamonds, to then take the diamonds back to America to turn a profit
to resell,
to resell
to people who would cut them down or
something
or
like
what
that.
Have you? And
he's buying uncut. He's buying uncut diamonds.
Yeah. And so when in the first scene of the film, which I didn't need a voiceover to sort of have me piece together what was going on because it's in the film. I guess they're cutting in by Gielgud telling Mason to charge more. They're actually cutting into Grodin's margin because he would have agreed to terms with the people he's selling them to in New York. So they're actually cutting into Grodin's margin when they're not the people that are going to buy them in New York.
I think that the implication is that they're underselling him because Grodin is just like this mild-mannered kind of weakling guy who doesn't belong there.
Yeah. He doesn't dress the right way.
Yeah.
He's tardy.
Yeah.
He doesn't follow the rules. He doesn't follow the rules of society.
And the voiceover narration makes it very clear that he doesn't like him either. And he's super uncomfortable whenever he's in it. Nothing left to the audiences.
And while there's a very definitely questionable choice for Grodin to choose that character voice in general. In the film, with that voice and the voiceover, it's just like you sound like you're bored with the film you're narrating.
Yeah, for a guy who's adapting this screenplay and you decided to like punch up some dialogue for yourself, man, you couldn't have picked like a worse voice for yourself.
The voiceover, it turns into him watching the movie along with.
It turns into what we're doing.
Yeah.
It turns into him like poking fun at some of the shit that
he's pointing out plot holes within the movie that he is the star of.
Yeah.
And he doesn't but he also seems bored with it.
And the thing is, unlike Harrison Ford, who I'm sure we all know deliberately did a board reading for Blade
so
Runner.
They wouldn't choose that.
Yeah.
Even though it didn't work out.
Did.
I mean, they eventually corrected it. But
he was actually trying to do something that he thought would help the film, and it's like,
no, because like,
but he does say in his book, he does say that he just said I didn't help the film. He said the way that I chose to play it would have worked if my name was Clint Eastwood or Sean Connery, but it doesn't work for the film. Like I actually think. Not to, every actor wants to stretch and things like that, but had he been a little bit more like his character in Midnight Run, it would have worked.
This is also like his second leading role too. Like this is coming off the heels of him leading a movie for the first time. Yeah. So there's lots of sophomore movies from like actors and stuff like that where you're watching it was all like the second time out they still hadn't figured it out yet.
Well, and he wanted, I think he also said that he wanted to make choices that were distinct from Heartbreak Kid.
Oh, okay.
So I guess in Heartbreak Kid, because again, I haven't seen it because I'm waiting for this pristine copy to be watchable that I have, he was a bit more manic.
I mean, Heartbreak Kid is a comedy. No, he's very manic.
And so he wanted to go the other way, and I honestly think a better director, an actor's director would have looked at that and gone, this isn't working.
Yeah.
So Gielgud stiffs him on he gives him a smaller packet of diamonds.
Enough diamonds that he could fit into his peanut butter sandwich.
What was the deal with that? What was up with that?
I thought at first, oh, is there also a smuggling element? Is he going to eat them and swallow them before he gets on a plane? That's
No,
what I thought.
He's just contemplating his lot in life.
Good
and
luck passing those. My God.
He puts that pittance of diamonds sprinkled into his peanut butter sandwich, and he's just drawing circles around the diamonds, going, "Oh, woe is me! I have a very lucrative job, and I have an amazing girlfriend. Woe is me!
I didn't get as many diamonds as I did last time. Oh well, I guess I'll just stick them in this food.
And who makes a peanut butter sandwich on rye bread?
Maybe all I don't know.
This is part of the reasons why the guys at the system don't like him. He's just
was
so
it
weird,
rye
dude.
bread or was it toasted? I thought it was just like peanut butter toast.
Oh, I thought it was it looked like rye bread. to me.
I don't know. Yeah, and then that's just like a weird scene where Candice Bergen comes out and very rightfully says, "What are you doing? Why are you putting diamonds in peanut butter?" And he doesn't have a great answer for her.
Nope.
And then the scene ends.
Yeah, and she's into that. Can I just say that Candice Bergen is way too good for this guy?
Can we have let's
She was awesome.
let's talk Candice Bergen.
Yeah.
What are our thoughts on Candice Bergen?
Amazing. I would have watched an entire movie of just this character.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like her what's her character name again? Marin.
Marin. Yeah, Marin.
Yeah, which doesn't sound like a full name, but it's,
Everyone kind of has like a slightly off name in this movie.
So she is the widow of this amazing European prince or something who moonlighted as a race car driver, and he died in an accident. So she inherited all his money, and for some fucking reason, she's into Charles Grodin and wants to be in his life, but she cannot get remarried because otherwise she loses the fortune that she's entitled to. So she just bankrolls everything, and she's a phenomenal race car driver. She's got a daredevil spirit, like a devil-may-care.
She knows how to shoot guns.
Yeah,
she's
yeah.
Like she's an okay aim. She's a better aim than Grodin.
But at least she's excited about life and stuff.
So in addition to Grodin being like this diamond seller who works for like these snooty upper class Brits who don't respect him, he also has like this amazing vivacious girlfriend who loves him and basically supports him financially. So there's a lot of I guess like wounded male ego to go along with that too. So he's just a big loser. He's just a huge loser, and you just left to wonder, why are we following the exploits of this guy?
Yeah. I love her introductory scene where she's just tearing ass down the English countryside, having all these near collisions with all the other motorists.
Talking about alternate openings, just open the movie with that.
Yeah.
Just like the credits and Candice Bergen just like hauling ass down a British countryside road and no fucking voiceover. That's how you open your movie.
Or get rid of all that nonsense with the diamond smugglers that we don't even know who they are and they don't really amount to anything. Have her driving him to 11 Harrow Street, put him in the passenger seat, and then it's a nice bookend with the end of the film.
Yeah.
And like it tells you so much about her, how she's driving, because she accounts herself incredibly well behind the wheel in every scene she's driving.
Yeah.
Like that she knows what she's doing, and you get the fact that there is this contradiction in him of being a fraidy cat about a lot of things, but still being very good at what he does, right? It's,
Candice Bergen is such a unique beauty.
Oh, yeah.
Like, obviously she has, like, a big, long career. As growing up in the 90s, I knew her as that lady from Murphy Brown.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And then as I got older, I'm like, oh, damn, she had, like, a full-ass career. She got an Oscar nomination. She has just, like, one of the most unique faces. She doesn't look like anyone else. She is
beautiful, but there's nothing conventional.
She's got, like, this status.
Yeah.
Like, she's got, like, this real status to her. She looks high class in like a very specific way. But fun. I don't know if she's ever played like a low status character or something, but if she has in like a movie, I don't know if I would buy it. Because Candice Bergen just like always seems like someone who walks in a room and then she just commands everyone in that room. She just
Stand for. All right, so moving on with the plot, as they are just walking through the London Underground or whatever.
In tuxedos.
Like they're going to a show or something, but really they're just going through a barren hallway. They notice that somebody's following them. So Charles Grodin confronts this guy and is completely manhandled in front of his girlfriend.
He's such a dork.
And this is just so like that guy who's manhandling can deliver him like a summons. Like a rich guy wants to offer payment for his services. there was no need for him to get rassled and like put in a chokehold or something like that. It just reinforces that this guy's a bit of a dweeb.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a curious way to do that, and like the audio is terrible. Like they did nothing to. I know it was.
Well, they shot in an actual tunnel, and they probably
Yeah.
had like one microphone. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very odd.
I don't know
So
what was
much
going
shot
on.
badly.
They're in fancy dress. Both of the goons are in tuxedos. And I'm like, are they at like an opera or something? I don't know what's going on. I don't know.
Well, those are just passageways in London where you can like go
Right.
from one side of
Like a
you know,
service exit
so you
or
don't,
something.
yeah, you don't go you don't have to go overground from say the street across the street from Trafalgar Square.
So
You
those
go
were just
under.
those were just walking tuxedos.
Those are just like walking.
Everybody
yeah,
walking
you know,
tuxedos.
just casual. Yeah,
It's a
you know.
beautiful night here in the tunnel.
Yeah.
Let's-
Some people
Yeah.
wear like full jogging outfits nowadays. Back then in Britain,
they had class back in
They
the
had class
70s.
when they were
Britain.
walking around. Yeah.
Yeah.
He left his top hat at home.
But again, there was comedy in all of that was just not serviced well by the direction.
no, it
Yeah.
really fell flat.
Yeah.
Along with a lot of other scenes.
So they are invited to the mansion of Clyde Macy, who is this wealthy man who employs nothing but deaf and mute people.
For no real reason. I kept thinking that was going to become like a thing. There's lots of like elements that are introduced in this movie that I've like, is that going to be important later? Not really.
No.
He just has,
Yeah.
and not even, and all of his goons later we find out aren't deaf and mute.
Nope.
He has
Certainly don't
people who
seem
can
like
talk.
it. Yeah,
so yeah,
Absolutely, yeah.
it
It
is.
seems like something that must have been in the novel,
Right,
And like
probably,
it's an
yeah.
enriching character thing in a novel.
but they didn't
Yeah.
include the one line of dialogue that made it make
Made
sense.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I have a feeling a lot of the voiceover narration is stuff lifted directly from the novel.
Probably, yeah. Apparently the novelist hated this film.
Really? So
So he goes to Massey's estate. Massey is played by the great British actor Trevor Howard, who was a famous drunkard. I mean, he also was in like a ton of great movies like Brief Encounter and other things.
but
like
most
that.
known for being a drunk.
He was one of those great British actors like Oliver Reed, who was as known for his acting as he was for his crazy pub stories.
Okay.
Yeah. And so Massey invites them over. They have dinner or like
They have an awkward dinner
They have, like, an
where the
awkward-
entire time, like, Charles Gordin just wants to get the hell out of there. He wants nothing to do with this.
He wants out of this movie.
He wants out of the movie real bad. But Macy makes him an offer he can't refuse. He will pay him $1 million to go and buy this super rare diamond from the system and to get it cut a very certain way.
Well, but we gotta talk about the thing because Massey tries to test him at first. He says like which one of these diamonds are fake and which one of these diamonds are real. And Cronin's way of doing this, he asks
Creme
for
de
a glass of creme de menthe,
Yeah.
and in less than 10 minutes, we have another scene of Charles Grodin putting diamonds in food, and he says it's like the real diamond took the longest to sink to the bottom. These are your fakes. This is, and I'm just over here going like, why creme de menthe specifically?
Mhm.
Could it not have been any liquid? Is it the
I think
viscosity
it's
of it?
I would guess. Again, this would probably be in the novel if that was lifted from the novel.
He
I would-
fucking explains everything in voiceover. Why not that? Why not the thing that's actually confusing?
I would guess it's probably one of the few liqueurs that's pretty translucent, right? That's
Sure.
That's pretty.
I mean, he specifically says, "Bring me clear creme de menthe," which is all like,
Oh
wow.
yeah, because you can get creme de menthe that's kind of white. Yeah. But
that was news to me. This is the movie that taught me that. I thought it was green.
I bet it's more like he's taking.
green. You're right. Yeah.
I bet it's
Green
more
is-
like he's taking advantage of like, well, this rich person's footing the bill. I may as well order the most expensive thing he's got. 'Cause what's my next chance of ever having one of these?
But as ridiculous as that may seem, like I guess the part of me that like in the last 20 years has read a lot of pulpy stuff, a lot of pulpy crime fiction, specifically about fictional criminals, not necessarily the cop side of it. I love scenes like that, but again, it just wasn't like there wasn't a single insert shot in that, right? There was like it was just like nothing serviced what was good about this script. Like there were moments that I'm like I feel confident I could take that film if I were given the cameras and do something.
A sign of a great movie is I could have done a better job.
Well,
at that.
No, but
I mean, like it's become somewhat routine to say this now, but like many people have the opinions of like, stop remaking good movies, start remaking flawed movies, movies that didn't work the first time.
That was one of Siskel and Ebert's biggest mantras through me rewatching.
And people rarely do that. They only remake the stuff that everyone already likes.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. We also in this scene are introduced to Lady Bolton.
Yeah.
Lady
Bolding.
Lady Bolding. Who I guess is Massey's live-in girlfriend or whoever, who is played by Trevor Howard's actual real-life wife. That's kind of neat. And then she and Candice Bergen go off for a swim, and they do what has to be one of the few times where a movie passes the Bechdel test, but we aren't privy to that conversation. Because you have to imagine they go off and have like their own conversation, and later on in the movie, Lady Bolding comes back and Candice Bergen's like, oh, she loves me. We're like great friends now. And it's like, do we ever get to hear a conversation between these two ladies? Certainly not.
Yeah, I mean, we can see they're attracted to each other, and I think, it's
I picked up on that subtext. And I would have liked a lot more of that. That would have been interesting.
It's so ridiculous how there are the shots where the men are talking shop. Yeah. And there's a noticeable moment where the two ladies go off on horseback, riding off into the countryside, and the camera very deliberately does like a hard zoom into those two of them. And I'm like, okay, they're scheming. They're planning something that the men aren't privy to.
No, they're just
I can't wait for that to come back and to bite Charles Grodin in the ass, where she finally gets to have a partner in life who has a joie de vivre that she does. No, nothing like that happens.
No, they're just friends, which actually is kind of refreshing for a movie
very
from
wholesome.
the 70s.
And about thieves.
About thieves. It just would have been nice if we actually could have seen a conversation
and
between
I'm not
these
even
two.
sure you'd have needed to add any scenes for that. I think it's again this thing where I really feel this film breezes through what it should have lingered on and plods through what it should have breezed through.
Yeah.
Like it's this weird thing.
I get that vibe, yeah. Trevor Morgan says, go buy me a diamond, so he goes back to 11 Harrowhouse and he buys a big-ass diamond. We forgot to mention the character of Watts.
James Mason.
Played by James Mason, who's like, we get the feeling who's like, he's a good egg. He's like the one person who works at 11 Harrowhouse who's not a complete pretentious snob. We can see that he's got like his own thing going on. There is a brief scene where Grodin calls his house and his wife picks up, and we learn that his first name is Charlie, so this character's name is Charlie Watts, which is funny to anyone who's a fan of the Rolling Stones. I just wanted to bring that up. So they get the diamond. They take a brief trip to Antwerp to get it cut. And then on their way back, presumably to give the diamond to Trevor Howard,
they are stopped at the fakest looking roadblock I have ever seen in a movie.
With road signs made with like whatever the 70s equivalent of a Sharpie.
Yeah. Like that was like from an elementary school play when they needed a roadblock set. These two goons rob them of their diamond in a scene that I thought was a very interesting scene, because these goons trank them with something that paralyzes them but keeps them conscious. So when they're both still active but unable to move, they start searching the car, they start searching their bodies, and Charles Grodin, the way that he's been paralyzed is that he's looking directly at Candice Bergen, and he sees one of the goons really feel her up for the diamond. And when the camera had like a zoom in on his face, I was like, I'm getting some Tarantino vibes. This. Because the radio is playing some like jaunty, happy-go-lucky tune from the 60s.
It's the original song that was written for the movie, Long Live Love by Peters and Lee. And of course, the perfect time to drop that is when Candice Bergen is getting felt up by this random thing. Movies had no idea when to drop their original songs. They just we'll just throw this in here. It's fine.
I liked how out of place it was. I thought
I like the contradiction.
Absolutely. And like when you see like the cameras do that slow zoom in on Charles Gordin, I was like, okay, this is going to be the inciting incident that turns him from a meek, passive-aggressive fellow to someone who's like actually really hell-bent on like sticking it to these motherfuckers. Like, I'm a changed man after being completely helpless watching this guy do this to my girlfriend.
The script would tell you that that's what happens, but his performance would not somewhat betrays that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they do find the diamond, and now they're out the diamond. So they go back, turn-tail to Clyde Macy and say, sorry, it got nicked. Sorry, mate, or whatever.
They do say it.
They do say it in that way. And he's not happy about it, but he says, like, well, fucking whatever. Like, just be on your way, guys. And Charles Grodin insists on, no, we can make it up to you. We can do robbery for you or something. What the fuck is it?
Like, this is how it is. somewhat convoluted.
Yeah.
Yeah, Charles Gordon doesn't want to let it go. I think what happens is Charles Gordon still wants to get paid by Massey. Massey's like...
Candice Bergen writes Massey a check for the $1 million and says, okay, well, now we're even.
But then Grodin's ego won't let that happen, so he rips the check up, and Trevor Howard's all like, you actually have a bit of a backbone. I actually kind of like this. And then Massey said... This is when Massey fills him in on the fact that 11 Harrowhouse keeps the diamond market in flux by actually stealing back a majority of the diamonds and then just sitting on them.
And they having them off the market.
Yes, they have them at the market, and they're in a vault underneath 11 Harrowhouse. And so we, the audience, are led to believe at this point, John Gielgud got that guy got his like cop thug from earlier to steal the diamond that they stole Charles Grodin, and they stole it back.
So he doesn't have to pay the
$1 million.
million.
And that's what we think is going on, and that's where Trevor Howard is all like, it will be square if you rob this secret diamond depository for me.
Of like 20 billion or whatever, and 2 billion in diamonds.
And then Charles Grodin leaves thinking that John Gielgud is the criminal. He is a criminal, but then as soon as he leaves, it turns out Trevor Howard was the one that stole the diamond. He had his own diamond stolen for him because he knows about the secret diamond depository, and he wants Charles Gordon to rob it for him.
Exactly.
So he's the one pulling all the strings.
Exactly.
Is Massey.
Yeah.
What is curious about that, though, is so what was his ultimate plan? Because it's
a good question.
Trevor Howard isn't the one that puts that plan forward after his initial diamond is stolen, right?
Yeah, he figures that once he stole the diamond back, and he no longer has to pay $1 million.
But I guess, do you guys think that he just planned on like getting $1 million back from Grodin somehow, or did he think this would lead Grodin to do what he does?
Well, because he offers Grodin $10 million to rob the diamond, because they estimate there's like 5 billion pounds worth of diamonds in there. So he offers him there is one kind of unironically funny line of dialogue where Trevor Howard says, "How would you feel about 10 million pounds?" And then like Grodin takes like a long pause and then just goes, "Good. I feel good about it." Yeah. I don't know. It's a really convoluted plan. And then jumping ahead to the end, Trevor Howard also kind of bungles the triple cross at the last possible
moment. That was
moment.
a terrible way in the writing and in the staging. That
we'll get to that, but it doesn't. It kind of seems like Trevor Howard is just like this eccentric billionaire who kind of just like is driven by his own whims.
And I think he enjoys screwing people over.
Yes,
his own greed.
He's a real Mr. Burns type thing. Yeah.
So Charles Grodin and Candice Bergen are going to set their plan into motion. They loop in James Mason a part of this because there's a scene earlier where Charles Grodin and James Mason are just casually sitting in, I suppose, the lounge area of 11 Harrowhouse, because this movie only has like 3 different settings.
Yeah.
Lots of roads.
The exterior of 11 Harrowhouse and the interior. This is where James Gordon is complaining about how he gets no respect from the people at the system. And James Mason offers this story where he tells about how a friend of his who devoted his entire life to the company, but he was recently diagnosed with cancer, and because he hasn't had a long enough tenure, they're not going to give him the full benefits that we would have.
Like the tenure is like short by like a couple of months.
Exactly.
Like
so he's getting screwed out of it. And
this is how stupid I was. The first time James Mason said that, my first thought was like, oh, that sucks for his friend. And it wasn't until like the next scene when Charles Grodin's all like, I know you're dying. I'm all like, oh fuck, he was dumb. He's
talking about himself.
I was dumb. I thought James Mason, because it's a good motivation for him either way. If his friend is dying or if he's dying or whatever to screw over 11 Harrowhouse.
But he's like drinking heavily in that scene too. He's depressed that he's not going to be able to provide for his family after he dies or whatever. Very, very Walter White motivation of this guy.
There are parallels there. You're actually right. Yeah.
So now like they're all in cahoots, and Watts is going to be their inside man, and they're going to pull off this heist. And now is the part of the movie where in any other heist movie they would actually show how the heist is going to be maintained. They're going to show the things that they're talking about, like, okay, the roof is pressure sensitive, there's like a guard 24/7, there's electronic locks. They're going to actually show this stuff. This movie doesn't show.
But then like the latter half of the heist, which is like the part of the movie that I enjoyed the most, Like, they do, like, a little initial explanation of how everything's going to go, and then they stop explaining things.
Yeah.
And then the movie gets really interesting.
Yeah.
And this was the part of the movie where I'm like, this is really cool, because, like, I was also, like, really enjoying the fact that it was, like, a period heist movie, because, like, nowadays, it would all be, like, you know, like, they have to deal with, like, CCTV footage and everything like that, and, like, looping stuff and bring in some dumb Mission Impossible style gadget that, like, changes their faces or something like this. It's all, like, this is all analog, baby. Like, this is very, meat and potatoes type heist, and I was into it. I love, like, the old ways of, like, getting around here.
I love the thing with the cockroaches. I thought the plot was actually quite clever in that way, and, like, in the way the robbery happened.
Like, a perfect example, you have no idea what the cockroaches are for a good majority of the runtime, and
until they're actually
shown.
I thought there was going to be a lot more cockroaches, because the poster of this movie is
terrible.
It's very bad.
Nothing about that would make me go, I gotta see this.
I remember
the poster's very cockroach forward. Let's say that.
Kaz, when you pitched this movie to me, it's like, I've got this great movie idea. It's got Charles Gordin in it. It sounds fascinating, and I know there's an element of cockroaches in it.
I thought it was a jewel heist with bugs. I read the synopsis, and I'm all like, jewel heist with bugs. I'm into this. The cockroaches are a very small element, small but important element of the heist. Yeah. But according to this movie's film poster, you would think that this was a movie about a giant cockroach made of bricks that Grodin and Bergen are rappelling down.
Oh my god!
So yeah, they sneak onto the roof.
Yeah. They wait for day for night, and then they sneak onto the roof.
Totally.
Yeah, they're waiting.
And they overdid day for night too.
Absolutely.
It was so hard.
Shit.
You guys probably watched it on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I bought it on iTunes because you couldn't rent it. It was $12.99 to buy.
You can rent it on YouTube for $5.50.
To give you guys.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. But
worth every penny.
But like it was so fucking dark. It was like the worst day for night I've ever seen. It was like, okay, you shouldn't obscure what's being shot.
Yeah.
There's this big tension moment where they have to swing over a chimney that, frankly, not that big of a swing. I could probably do that easily.
Yeah.
There's really no. I mean, like, if they fall, they're gonna hurt themselves. But like, it's like from going from like here to here.
Yeah.
Really, it's not that big a deal.
They have to do that because the roof of 11 Harrowhouse has like pressure sensitive, where anything over 10 pounds is going to set it off. So ever the little bitch, Charles Grodin makes his girlfriend do it. Well, he tries to do it. He's like, oh no, I'm too heavy to stand on the gutters, and she does it no problem. And what they do is they unscrew I want to, it's not the word for it, but I'm just going to say it, the gearbox.
Control panel.
The control panel, whatever.
Access panel.
Access panel, thank you. And they get a layout of the wiring system that goes down into the building. And one is very obviously going to be leading into the vault. The other one leads to God knows where. So what their scheme is, Charles Grodin is going to paint some cockroaches and send one down each tube. And James Mason has to relay on the other side which cockroach made through. If it was going to be the blue one, if it was going to be the red one.
Now, how does Grodin ask Mason to attract the cockroach, Jameson? Because this was a big moment where I had to pause the movie and had to go, now wait just a second here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, he says, all right, we're good to go. By the way,
Mr. Watts.
Yes.
Would you add a slice of chocolate cake to your lunch tomorrow?
A slice of chocolate cake? Yes, certainly.
And would you keep an eye open for a hand-painted cockroach?
Yes, certainly, sir.
I'll never forget how casually Watts said, yes, certainly he'd keep an eye out for a hand-painted cockroach.
And so the next day we see Mason in the vault. He waits until he's alone in the vault. He unscrews the electrical panel, and then he puts the chocolate cake next to the electrical panel, and I'm going, now wait a second. This is not what Charles Grodin told him to do. He just told him to watch out for cockroaches and to buy himself a nice slice of chocolate cake.
You've earned it, buddy.
He did not fill in any more of these details than anyone else. And I guess we're meant to infer that, like,
that there was a bigger dialogue.
That they had a conversation off camera or whatever.
Yeah.
But again, it's like this movie's telling us a lot of stuff we don't need to know. Totally. And the one part of the movie that I would have actually kind of appreciated some backup with it's completely lost. But yeah, so he puts the cake out. A cockroach eventually finds its way over to there, and then I guess he lets Grodin know. It was the red one. And so now they know which tube goes into the vault.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's a very convoluted plan. Definitely doesn't suggest that it should be the main poster image, but who am I? I wasn't a marketing head in 1970s.
I don't know, maybe
so.
a diamond should have been.
Maybe.
Yeah, right?
A little more visually appealing to an audience than a giant cockroach.
How about a big diamond, tiny cockroach? How about that? Keep the cockroach element. Don't make it your entire poster. Cockroaches famously gross people out. So if someone saw a poster of that and was trying to decide what movie to go see,
I want to go see the big bug movie.
Also, isn't like the poster is like there's a lot of really dull brown, which to me is like it doesn't pop.
Yeah.
No.
no, not at all.
No,
It's
the-
a very boring looking.
Color combo of brown and purple, you know?
Brown, purple, and white.
Yeah, geez, wow, just a feast for the eyes.
Oh man.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. This is like no robbery you've ever imagined. Two amateurs armed only with a common insect, ingenuity, a thin cord, guts, and a household appliance. How could they penetrate a steel fortress and rob $12 billion worth of uncut diamond? Oh, I thought it was 5.
I thought it was 10.
All of a sudden, it's jumped up to 12.
Whatever. Well, you know, inflation.
12 is, I think actually 12 is... Actually, no. 12 is confusing. Like, the envelope he first buys the diamonds with, it says 12,000 pounds.
I could have sworn there was $5 billion. I wrote down $5 billion at the end of it. I don't know. This was from the era where, like, taglines for posters were like a novel.
Yeah.
Like, they just went on forever.
As were trailers.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that I don't think it's a household vacuum cleaner. Like a household vacuum
No,
cleaner.
it's like, no, it's
that's
not.
an,
like an
that's an
industrial
industrial vacuum, yeah. they attach like a massive fire hose to it and they put it down the tube and then for a good like 10 minutes is just the movie having James Mason vacuum up diamonds.
I wrote down at one point, this Porky has so much to vacuum. They're really putting like a lot of like the
manual
yeah, the
portion
man
of it,
labor
the legwork on like this like
on a dying man who's like I wrote at one point in time I was like, is the plot going to be like he's going to like keel over mid heist and they're not going to know what to do because he's not looking great.
Fuck, I was waiting that entire portion for now that they're pulling off the heist, let's introduce some tension into this. Let's have like a guard swing by or let there be like some kind of jam. There's nothing. A guard comes out, inspects a truck. Yeah. Like, nothing's super suspicious.
None of the guard stuff is tension building.
No, and then the other guard comes down the elevator and just looks at the closed vault door. That's it. Yeah, and even like, you know, there is that sort of fake out about James Mason having to take his medication, right, towards the end of vacuuming it up. I thought it would have been a brilliant, this is me reshooting the film, but I thought it would have been a brilliant thing that it's like we see him starting to take that tablet and maybe make a bit more of a meal of it in terms of his state,
his nervousness
or his health at that moment. And then we don't know what happens to him after that until Gielgud opens the vault.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, like that would have been a much better, it's like, is he going to be dead? Is he going to be whatever when Gielgud opens the vault? It just was these strange missed opportunities.
There's also like the embarrassing way that Mason sneaks into the vault in the first place. Like
I loved this.
Everyone,
I did too.
All of the employees at 11 Harrowhouse have to like sign out. There's like the guy at the desk or whatever, and everyone's just like walking by, and the guy's just all like, "Hello, Johnson, you're gone. Hello, Miss Evers,
good evening,
you're gone.
sir.
Oh, good evening, Mr. Watts. How are you?" And then
he kind of just slinks back into the crowd.
He's not even sneaky about it. He just like he's in those like, "I'm leaving now," and then he goes back the other way, and no one notices.
There are like 50 people behind him in line.
Many people.
He just kind of.
I actually have less problems. I have way more problems with this because I think there is something about that.
Like rigid bureaucracy, they don't notice anything.
And also no one notices him because he's like a low-status character.
And also I just think, you know, kind of those stories that maybe now they're apocryphal, but they're based on something true about, like, guys that walk into, like, a sporting goods place, put a canoe on their shoulders and walk out with it, right? I mean, I think sometimes you can do those things.
The famous example is if you're two guys and you walk into any location while you're carrying a ladder, people are just going to look the other way because they assume you know what you're doing. Yeah. You're supposed to.
But
be
he doesn't
there.
even have a ladder.
He doesn't have a ladder.
That wasn't the point quite, but.
I love during this whole thing where like there are two moments where Charles Grodin almost ruins the entire scheme because at this point during the heist, Candice Bergen is waiting down in a delivery truck, waiting for like the vacuum to suck all the diamonds into the back of the truck. Charles Grodin, when he wants to prove himself as a man, swings all over the chimney. He does set off that alarm, but instead of the night guards doing their actual job. They just like do like a weird switchboard
Yeah,
thing.
they do
like,
what I would have done.
yeah, it's like the fucking check engine light on your car.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well,
just
and,
ignore
and
that.
again, I think it could have worked. I'm sounding more and more like an apologist for this movie, but I don't mean to. I just think that, again, there's a way that could have been shot differently. Like, there was just nothing about the way it was framed that filled us with tension, right? Like, there's a way that they could have done the same thing, and I would have bought it.
There's also an element of the heist that I didn't understand, where I think it was to communicate with each other, because they were the three. Bergen's in the truck and Grodin's on the roof and Mason's in the vault, and they have no way of communicating with each other. At one point in time, Grodin rolls a hard candy down to Mason, and I think that was meant to be like a sign to say that's all, like, something's happening.
On to phase 2.
We're pausing for the moment or whatever. There is a moment, of course, when it comes down, Mason pops it in his mouth, and I immediately went, "Don't put that in your mouth, Mason. That was in like a gross, like, vacuum tube or whatever." But also, he's gonna die soon, so who cares?
A cockroach just went down that pipe.
Exactly. Yeah, don't put it in your
I
mouth,
was trying
Mason.
to figure out. I wondered at one point, but I think I was giving the film way too much credit, and it didn't play out. But I thought, is this a way of them measuring time? Like, by the time that we have sucked this humbug down to
I don't know.
whatever. But that is so, like, you can't time something.
No,
Humbug?
they could also sync their watches, I imagine.
Yes.
Boy, back in the 70s, everyone's just walking around sucking humbugs all day long.
It's like, as a big, if the police caught you with humbugs, they were
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
where are you off to?
What's always saying?
They were hanging outside the bank. They had humbugs.
We caught him loitering, sucking humbugs.
The humbug game.
Yeah.
The humbug game.
Why wouldn't you just use a watch? Because a humbug.
Because that's our calling card. It's our signature.
We're the humbug group. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck, yeah.
Can it be the Peppermint Gang? No.
The Peppermint Gang's actually not too bad.
Yeah.
So they suck all the diamonds up.
Yeah.
And James Mason...
Without a hitch.
No, not really.
Other than having to switch it off when the guard does the rounds. No, it goes off with there's even a part where Charles Grodin's asleep on the roof, and he, like, almost, like, in a startle, knocks a mug off the roof, and that doesn't alert anybody.
Yeah.
So
there is, like, a good portion of this movie. It feels like there's, like, 20 minutes of this movie where there's, like, basically no dialogue. It's just them stealing these diamonds.
Blissful
I was
silence.
merciful that there was no voiceover in that period.
It
was
is.
20 minutes of respite.
But that's the other thing about the voiceover is it's inconsistent.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. So Mason has told Grodin before the heist that it's all like getting out of the vault is actually a little easier than getting into the vault. So he infers that's all like, don't worry about it. I got my own way out of the vault. Don't you even worry about it. So Bergen and Grodin drive off in the van with their haul of diamonds or
that
whatever.
looks a lot like glass.
I mean, that's what diamonds look like. So
That's
I don't know
movie
what to tell
magic.
you. Those are all real diamonds.
Almost magic.
Yeah.
And then Grodin stays where he is, and then it sinks into us. It's all like he's not going anywhere. He's got nothing. Mason does. He's got nothing left to lose, and he's gonna
wait in the vault till it opens in the morning.
And he pours himself a nice little drink, and he gives himself a shave, and it's a nice little moment. I like James Mason in this movie. I like this character.
Yeah.
He should have, like, it was such a good performance. It really was, and because Mason in the last, like, decade or more, he did have apparently, like, a lot of health problems, and so my immediate thought when I saw him in this film was like, oh God, was he like, maybe this is when it began for him,
channeling
his health problems, right?
Yeah.
And, but
he lived for like quite a while after this movie too. So.
But did he have to retire from acting?
No.
No.
He got a late in life third Oscar nomination for The Verdict in 1982. So so he was still kicking ass for a long time. I mean, I haven't seen everything that Mason has done, obviously, because he has a big, long career.
Totally.
I always kind of unfairly peg him as, like a bit of a creep, because he's a great cinematic creep. Of course, he's the most famous cinematic pedophile of all time. And he's just like a great kind of like snooty, scummy bad guy. So it's nice to see him as like as the flip side of the Gielgud character here, and he's playing like a nice chap.
Together.
So the vault opens up the next morning, and they see that the diamonds have been hoisted away. There's only a drunk James Mason there to greet them. He claims that, I ate the diamonds, sir. Which is...
There's a funny scene where they're all opening the drawers, and James Mason is like casually opening the drawers, and they're like, and he's just like,
Here,
"Well,
let me help
try
you."
this one."
Yeah.
Okay, this is gonna be a really stupid question, and forgive me for posing this to you, Tariq, but
me?
you are
Okay.
you have mentioned of your own accord that you are of a different generation. You are older than both of us. I just feel like I need to ask this question. There's this scene where Gielgud is opening the vault, and there's like this electronic panel that like whirs up and everything, and he like types it in and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Did those exist? Or is that just a movie thing?
Is that just a holdover from the Adam West Batman?
Was that a thing that existed in the 70s? There was like an electronic door that you could go vrr, and it made that noise? Or
Well, my lifetime hasn't included a lot of time in vaults, but no. What the funny thing is I'd say more based on other films of a similar nature and whatnot. I thought it was dumb.
Because I see that stuff in like
that crosses
Bond.
generations.
Well, I believed I believed in whatever sort of $6 million man computer kind of crap. I believed what was behind that little sliding door, but I just I didn't understand. Why not just have the thing on
just
the
have
wall?
the thing, or because like if you make like a modern day movie where they're like robbing a vault and stuff like that, and you have to get to like a control panel, it would just be a door on a hinge.
Yeah,
he wouldn't have like an additional thing that goes like opening.
There was a better idea there again. Like what I didn't understand, there were two key things. And my immediate assumption when I saw, there's two key things. Yeah. The security guard and John Gielgud will have to do it simultaneously. Right? That would make sense to me.
I don't know. I just saw when that dumb fucking door like opened with like the noise and everything. Like I just had the thought where I'm all like, "Were those real, or is that just a movie thing?"
I think
it's just a movie.
That whole vault to me was like somebody just going like, "Well, we can't afford Ken Adam,
Sure.
so let's just get like a cheap knockoff of Ken Adams, James Bond sets with all the stainless steel." And I thought,
the vault's really kind of the only impressive location in this movie. I guess maybe Trevor Howard's mansion.
But I guess the mansion.
It's a mansion.
It's a mansion. It looks like a mansion.
They're all over England.
You're thinking of castles. Sorry.
Yeah, so the system guys, the system.
That's like fuck the system.
That's what a fucking gambler calls like their betting system.
Yeah.
Anyways, they berate James Mason in the office. He says, "Oh, you guys never cared about me," and then he keels over dead.
Because he took a pill from his little pill box, and we're led to believe, he's just taking some heart medication. But no, we find out later that that's strychnine, and then right before he dies, John Gielgud says to him, "You're trying my patience, Watts." And then James Mason's last lines are like, "As you are trying mine, sir." And then he keels over, which doesn't seem like like a badass line to go out on.
But it's a British badass
You have
line.
to remember, in the 70s, "You're trying my patience" was basically the British equivalent of motherfucker. So it was pretty badass.
I thought, it just occurred to me, his whole motivation was that he's not going to be entitled to like some retirement benefits that he was going to give his family as a means of support. Can the system not still go after and punish his family members?
Well, yeah,
because they infer that he was in on this heist, which is absolutely accurate. He probably didn't tell his wife and daughter, but they could still likely question them. They're not out of with him dead. Like the family's not out of the woods.
No,
but if there's no money, for them to that's the bit of that same sort of thing you're talking about, that there should have been something about like some line in there about making sure that they've got money.
Yeah, Charles
Bergen writes him a check.
Oh, does she?
Okay. There is like a very brief scene where he gets. Oh yeah, because they're sitting on the park bench and Grodin hands them the check, and then he sneaks it into his thing, and he says the system is always watching. But no, he does get paid.
Okay.
And you have to assume that Bergen and Grodin gave some of their diamond fortune to his family.
Exactly.
Yeah. There has to be
after a cooling off period where like the system isn't like following them anymore.
Yeah. They're needed. I just would have liked more explanation on something like that. I would have probably enjoyed a scene where after the heist, where Bergen and Grodin are talking about what are we going to do with this, and
it would have been one line.
Well, even a case where she says we should do something, for his family. He might not even say something like that, or even saying like, "Well, we're not greedy. We're just going to deliver these diamonds to what's his face, and we'd be done with it." I just would have loved a scene where she snaps at him and says, do you know what I've had to risk to support you? I was the one swinging on the south side of the building to do all this stuff. I'm footing all the bills for this sort of thing.
She loves danger, though.
She really likes
She's
it.
a
That's the thing
daredevil.
about her.
I would have just
She's
loved.
in it. She's the one that wants this to happen. She's the one earlier where she's like forcing the gun into Grodin's hand. He's all like, "Here, take the gun, shoot it. You'll like it. It'll be fun."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would just loved it if she laid into it as only she could, and only as she rightfully ought to have.
Yeah. So the two of them drive back to Massey's house, and this is where the movie completely loses its mind because their plan is they've got like 20 million of diamonds in a bag, and then they've stashed the van with the rest of the diamonds somewhere, and they're like, we're gonna go to Massey, we're gonna give this is the transaxle, we're gonna give him the bag, we'll tell him where the rest of the diamonds are, and then he'll pay us our $10 million. But they don't even get inside the house when one of the goons comes out
with a gun. And then there's a fist fight.
And then Grodin does like the only impressive thing in the entire movie where he like chop sockies the gun away from the guy. I don't know if chop sockies offensive. I apologize.
Like Kung Fu's, you man?
Kung Fu, I don't know. But like, why not like invite them into the house? Why not invite them into the drawing room?
You could have some exposition that would help people to understand what's
Why not
going
keep one of them as a hostage and then get the other one to go get the but the other thing is that's really confusing is why is Trevor Howard betraying them? I guess he's
a greedy madman.
He doesn't want to pay them the $10 million.
Yeah.
I think is really the only reason why he turns on them in this point. But again, that's not really like established or even mentioned.
Again, a very little bit of writing when they're in that period where they're getting acquainted with him could have sort of given a bit more of a nod.
Because there's this big chase now, this big like 15-minute chase.
Hell yes!
And Trevor Morgan is going. That's his name, right? Yeah, Massey is going like, "Tell me where the diamonds are," and I'm just sitting there going like, "That's what they were going to do. They were They were on their way to do that."
Well, I'm just glad that after an hour and 20 minutes, something awesome happened in this movie.
That's pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie.
Like the entire chase of them getting out of the estate and the bad guys like going after him on
horseback,
with hounds,
and Aston Martins and Lady Bolding gets in on it on like some sweet 1970s sports car.
That was a Lotus, yeah.
That was an awesome looking car. I love that.
It reminded me of the fake screenplay that Nicolas Cage writes in Adaptation, where it's all like it's like car versus horse.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that whole sequence was actually directed by a guy named Anthony Squire. Who directed, like, he was second or third unit on a lot of Bond movies, and he would do the car chases and stuff like that.
Yeah, because this is like a competent part of the movie where there's like good action.
God, we're finally.
I know. In the last 10 minutes.
And really good
Yeah.
that he also, I don't know this for a fact, but just in terms of the quality of the material that was shot, I suspect that same guy did the introductory scene with Candice Bergen in the Ferrari.
Sure,
probably. It had some dynamic kind of float, right?
Excellent stunt driving, good pacing,
there's a thing that happens that I love when I see this in movies from a certain era where the gate closes on them and Grodin jumps onto it, and we learn that it's electrified because they drew on the film stock. They drew
little lightning bolts
on the film stock, and it's like they didn't need to. I would have gotten it with the sound effect and Grodin falling down. I appreciate that they did that, because I never see that anymore, and that's just it's so quaint.
Speaking of
whenever you see shit like that happen.
Speaking of sound and Grodin needed to shut the hell up during this entire chase sequence.
Oh my god, the one place where we need no narration. Well, there were several that we did about things like that.
But this is the moment where like the narration is Grodin is starting to point out like the plot holes of the movie.
Guns I understood, but were they trying to get the dogs to bite the tires? Who were all these people? Where did they all come from? This guy started with 2 deaf and dumb servants, and now he had an army. My theory was that they'd all been leading pretty boring lives, and at the slightest chance for some action went crazy.
There's one moment where Candice Bergen like runs someone off the road, and Grodin just goes, "Take that."
Take that.
Very low energy.
I love this. I'm probably dating myself again here, but it was like even though it was a close match to his voice in the film proper, the narration was like, it was as if Carlton the doorman from Rhoda was doing the okay. Whoosh. Okay. Old reference lost on younger people.
But I'm going to assume it's brilliant.
But Carlton on the show Rhoda was always like, "Hi, how are you today?"
Oh, very monotone.
Kind of Stephen Wright.
You've had a few guests for you this afternoon, right? And that was almost what his voiceover was.
I'm just very grateful that all the goons going after him were pretty inept themselves. Like there's one guy on horseback who just drives right into a low hanging branch.
Oh yeah,
and stunt work. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's
really
one
good stunt work. Doesn't the guy
one
in
of
the
the
back seat shoot
one of the guys in the back seats accidentally shoots the driver of the car he's in.
Fiction.
Yeah, and then he drives that car like careening off a cliff.
A lot of just straight on fatalities in this. It climaxes with this very fucking cool thing where what are those concrete circles called?
I just put a cement
tunnel,
like a
piece of tunnel.
Yeah, like a piece
cement
of tunnel.
Cylinder.
Cement cylinder.
Just large enough for a Lotus to drive through.
Or whatever it was.
Yeah, and Bergen drives through it.
Sedan.
Yeah, and then one of the goons tries to get through and he gets stuck and then the car just blows up and it's fucking cool. And then Trevor Morgan just goes, "Oh well." And that's it, and then chases over.
It's funny, that scene was that scene where the with the Lotus going through and then the Jaguar getting caught and blowing up.
Yeah.
At some point, like nothing about this film jogged any memories for me. I was sure I'd never seen this film. That one moment made me go, okay, some point in my childhood, I caught this late night on TV or something.
I've had moments
because
like that.
Moment, I know I saw at some point.
Yeah, there are movies like that too, where I'm all like, I definitely haven't seen this, and then you'll get to a point where I'm all like, you know what? I watched this on TBS when I was like 11 or something. This is now coming back to me. Yeah.
That jogged my memory banks. Not of something I've seen, but something that I've done. So my
go on.
Jameson the Daredevil.
Now it's not as cool as this, but my family owns a condo in Bellingham near Lake Wacom, and we just so happen to have a golf cart like that we keep in the garage there. And to get to the general store around that, you would take the golf cart like up and down the hills, and you would go over the road, or you could go through this dismantled sewer pipe. And it is just large enough for a regular-sized golf cart to with like maybe like a 2-inch gap on either side. Wow. So yeah, really just like through the eye of a needle with that.
So basically exactly the same.
Pretty much exactly the same. Yeah. Lotus, golf cart, sewer pipe, concrete pipe. That was me, baby. I was what was his name? I was Charles Gordin.
You were I don't know what his name is. H.R. Chesser. Terrible name.
I was Chesser.
Yeah. And then they get away and they get back to where all the diamonds are, and they're like, what are we going to do with all of these diamonds? And so they decided to keep the bag that has 20 million pounds worth of diamonds, and then they're going to bury the rest so no one can have them, which, as John Gielgud explains, is a good thing, because if all of the diamonds were out there in the world, then diamonds would essentially be useless, have no value. Maybe that is a good thing. I don't know. Maybe who knows? But like, regardless,
It's like this. I'm not sure this is doing what you think it's doing.
I'm just thinking, like, why don't you just keep the lot of it, and whenever you need some spare cash, you cash in your dime. I don't know.
Well, here's my thought. I mean, like, 20 million is a lot of money, but like, here's my thought. It's all like, let's just take. If I was Charles Gordin in this situation, it's all like, all right, let's bury the majority of them. We'll keep 20 million in this one bag. If I'm Charles Gordin, what I'm saying is all like, maybe we get another bag. 20 million, a lot of money. Mm-hmm. You know what's more money? 40 million.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, it's like when I'm going to the store and they have the brand of cat litter that I like, and I'm all like, it's gonna be a bit of a schlep, but you know what? I'm gonna get 2 today because it's gonna be worth it on the lawn haul.
One for one, this is the exact same thing.
One for one,
especially
exactly.
when you can sell to a third party that recuts the kitty litter.
Exactly. Well, I mean, what is cat litter if not just like very, very small diamonds
for cats?
For cat. I mean, there is that cat litter that is like the crystal cat litter or whatever.
True.
So and then now that Grodin has 20 million, he can marry Candice Bergen.
Make an honest woman out of her, I guess.
She won't lose her fortune. They now have like a fortune that they share together, and they have like a modest little ceremony with their friends that I guess they had the entire time.
Sure.
And then
so weird.
Yeah, and then the movie ends with them in bed going like, hey, we got away with it. 11 Harrowhouse. That's the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Was there anything we didn't mention? Any plot element, any line of dialogue that we thought was nice? There's one line of dialogue here. I mean, like, during this chase here with, like, the endless voiceover from Grodin or everything, like, every once in a while, the voiceover will have like a funny line, but his delivery of it completely undercuts the joke, because there's like a line when like they're being like run off the road by like two different cars, and I didn't write down the entire line, but Grodin says something along the lines of like, I have this feeling going down the back of my thing. It's either this one thing or it's tension. I'm starting to believe that it's tension. And it's like, the joke is that, yeah, he's tense because he's in like a life-threatening situation. But like, it's one of those jokes was all like, oh, that was meant to be funny. All right, cool. Yeah,
I think that, the better direction for him in that role would have been not to play it as a coward, but play it as a guy that is methodical, a little bit contemptuous of people that are his economic betters, but not a risk taker rather than a coward, right? Mm-hmm. That it was because it just did something to the dynamic, right? Because then he could have played it a little suaver, or more suave. I don't know,
Suavish.
Yeah. And I think it would have worked, and it just it was. I think there was a lot of meat on the bone that through a different lens could have been a better film. Like it just
remake it.
Remake it. I'm already talking to people in Hollywood about
it. There you go. Remake it. Throw it into this endless cesspool that is our current entertainment
Well, I ran a theater company for a number of years.
Do the stage at
I'm currently working on my own podcast.
The next
greenlight this film for
the next lateral move is a remake of 11 Harrowhouse.
Yeah.
Jameson?
I had something, I lost it, and it doesn't really matter, and it's getting hot as balls in here.
Fair enough. All right, so 11 Harrowhouse. Do we think this movie has a certain something, or is it just a whole lot of nothing? Tariq?
I'm going to say a certain something, but it's probably for a very acquired taste.
Mm-hmm.
And probably more for someone that likes caper films and is capable of watching a film that they know when they're watching it could have been better, but if you want the thing to be better, if you want a better film, watch something else.
So no.
I have no regrets about watching it, and in fact, because I watched it in 2 bits, I was too tired when I started watching it, and I sent Kaz a text even going like, "Oh my god,
do we have to talk about this?"
You did the thing that I often do with Jameson, where it's like I'm 20 minutes into this movie, and there's already a lot to talk about.
Well, when you're exhausted from a long day on the road, and that voiceover is in your noise canceling headphones, and you're under a comfy blanket watching it at 11 o'clock at night, not the best time, and I found it way more, but my excitement about it was about unrealized potential, not with what I was actually watching.
Absolutely. Okay. Jameson.
I found Charles Grodin to be incredibly unlikable in this movie.
Not a great movie to show you as someone who doesn't know a lot of Charles Grodin.
Exactly. Not so much, I don't blame so much the performance of him, but I place a lot of the blame on the forced narration, which was like really holding my hand. Not the only thing that was informing me about his character was that I kind of don't like this sarcastic, little passive-aggressive guy who's very ineffectual and overlooked by most of the characters. Most of the events of the movie were just a little too plotting, which I think was more or less a thing that the 70s did a lot because people just had a lot more patience for films in the 70s, I thought. Let scenes breathe a little bit. But yeah, this movie had moments where it engaged me, but then it lost me very quickly. Like the actual heist itself was, okay, well now things are getting rolling and I can't wait for this to have some excitement and to have some tension injected into it. Totally. And it never had that.
Nope. And
other than maybe the last 20 minutes with that really well done car chase, I couldn't recommend this to anybody.
Yeah.
And I wish there was like more Candice Bergen. Candice Bergen needed to be the fucking protagonist of this.
It does the thing that sometimes movies did with billing back in the day, where it's not Charles Grodin isn't first billed. It's a split card first billing. It's Bergen and Grodin get top billing. Yeah. And then James Mason is third and Trevor Howard is third. Yeah. So that's interesting that it was like, this isn't a Charles Grodin picture, it's a Grodin Bergen picture.
Yeah.
I agree. We gotta talk some more Bergen, because I think she is a unique screen presence that I need to do a little more research on. I'd love to watch some of her earlier movies. Yeah, look, I wouldn't say seek this movie out, largely because it's kind of hard to watch. You have to pay for it to watch it. But
I'm paying dearly if I haven't watched it.
$12.99.
Look, if it's on TV, though, if it's already on TV, it's a light, pleasant little watch. There's nothing terribly offensive about it. Yeah, it's got a little certain something. It's not a great movie, but it's got a little certain something.
I just love, like, in my head canon that Charles Grodin took a look at that script, decided he was going to do it. He was going to beef up his role somehow, and he just made himself the most annoying character.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Tariq, thank you so much for coming.
Thank
and talking
you,
to
guys.
us about
Thanks,
this was
Kaz.
long in the making, and I'm so glad we finally got able to do it.
Me
And
too.
it was a really interesting conversation and a really interesting actor, and I'm glad you put us slightly out of our comfort zone by talking about an era of film that we don't often talk about. We stick a little closer to the 80s and the 90s because that's our cinema.
Yeah.
But I think one of like the earlier suggestions you said was like, I'd love to do something on Paul Newman, and I'm like, that's not a filmography I want to touch because it's very long. He was in a lot of movies, Paul Newman. So
and it's also with someone like him, it's easier that there are things that are completely obscure or off the beaten track.
Yeah, because he made so many damn movies.
Yeah.
I've definitely seen more Paul Newman movies than I've seen Charles Grodin movies.
But yeah, thanks so much for coming, and please come back anytime you want. And I know you don't have anything to plug, but I know we've been talking and you've been saying that you want to get into podcasting and you have like ideas for podcasts. So maybe retroactively, if you're listening to this like in the future or whatever, listen to one of Tariq's hypothetical podcasts. Yeah, because I'm excited to be a guest on those when those finally happen.
And you will. Yeah, no, I mean, the only thing I could say about that, I mean, for people that are interested in following my views on things, socio-political, I tweet more than I should on the dying platform known as Twitter.
Get it while you can. That's what I'm doing.
I'm at Tariq Leslie, and there, when I finally do get my podcast thing going, that's where I'd probably be one of the main places I announce it. But everything I do will fall under the banner of SO Tariq, because then I don't want to limit myself to what I talk about. So that gives a broad enough umbrella that I can talk about anything from politics to movies.
Sure.
So
That'll be the name of your eventual MSNBC talk show.
That's right. Yeah, that I'll model after Charles Grodin. Yeah.
Well, that was 11 Harrowhouse, directed by Aram Vakian. I guess that's his name. Yes, if you like this episode, please check out our back catalog. We are available on Spotify and YouTube. If you're listening to this on Spotify, check us out on YouTube, because Jameson adds all of these images from the movies that you get to see all the context. We love context. We are on the social media. We are on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We'd like to thank Joel Flynn and Luke Schuss and everyone at Podstream Studios for letting us use their equipment. We'd like to thank Eddie Lamb for his fantastic theme music. And that's it. I need a better way to sign off, but
Absolutely you do. Jeez, that's a mouthful.
whatever. Regardless, I'm Kaz.
I'm Jameson, and in the immortal words of Charles Grodin, thieves aren't breathing down your neck.
Thanks, buddy.
I had something else in mind, but you know what? Because you were a little treat at the end of this
Jameson, you should see the smile on my face,
Yeah,
folks.
it's all worth it.
I love
Sitting
it.
in the hot box waiting to see those pearly whites. It's all worth it. Good night, everybody.
Bye.